Warmest of welcome to the Gisborne District Council, our last meeting for this triennium. Please don't clap. Okay, let's close our eyes and I'll open with Karakia for us. Dear God, thank you for bringing us together here today. Thank you for a wonderful 3 years we could have worked together for our community. Thank you for walking alongside us. It has been a tough journey. It's been a tough journey for our community. Please guide us today that we bring our best self to this meeting. Thank you for blessing us every day. I ask your special blessing on Ani and Josh as they move on from council today. Thank you for being with our community. And God, I ask as we move forward that you bless us and that you walk alongside us. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, good morning. Let's just open with very funny apologies because Councillor Ria are chasing piglets down the main road. So she just texted that when she came to council, unfortunately 10 piglets got out into the main road. So she will be late, probably a good half an hour, depending on how many piglets she can collect. And then we do have Councillor Tibble online. Thank you. Otherwise, full house. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It is a great privilege to open this meeting today. We do have a full agenda ahead of us, but I do want to take this opportunity to acknowledge councillors around the table, and at the end of our council meeting, we will give our lovely Ani and our lovely Josh an opportunity to speak to us, and we will also have an opportunity to reach into our hearts and thank them for the lovely work they have done. So without further ado, I am going to take us to declarations of interest. First, I move apology for lateness for Councillor Ria and apology for Councillor Tibble, who needs to leave early. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? If you do get to a paper where you forgot that you have a conflict of interest and you remember, please just shout out. Okay, councillors, I take you to page 5, which is the confirmation of our minutes. It's long minutes, but luckily the wonderful Dee emailed those out a long time ago for everyone to read. So I am after someone moving that this is a true record. Moved by Councillor Telfer, seconded by Councillor Cranston. Questions or queries in regards to minutes? All in favour?
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. Thank you. Then we have our action register. Work in progress. Okay. Leave of absence, no governance work plan. Acknowledgements and tributes. Nothing that we should be aware of. Public input and deputations. So I'm just going to go back to acknowledgement and tributes, and for all councillors here, Josh, Larry, Andy, we worked with Alan Hall, and he passed away a few weeks ago. He was just a spectacular human being. From an early time in his life, he had so many challenges and so many health challenges, but still he became a very successful lawyer. He had physical disability, and he was a staunch advocate for our disability sector as well. And he was the instigator behind the Holy Trinity Meet the Candidates, and he would host that, and that was a real, every 3 years, the Holy Trinity debates were a real big thing. So I just want to take the opportunity from council to extend lots of aroha to Alan's whānau. Nadine and I attended and Andy has tangi last weekend, even though in the last 6 months he moved to Wellington to be closer to his daughters Veronica and Rosemary. They brought him home to be buried. So just a big recognition of our ex-colleague and dear friend. Rhonda.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Raising my hand for the minutes that we've just signed off. 6.1 Ngai Tāwhiri properties in Puhikaiti. Bullet point 4, mana of Ruapahi should read mana of Ruapani with a capital R. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Okay, so we've got adjourned business on page 22, which you can see was the paper we had. So don't be confused, that's a paper we had. What is the process? Because there's a paper, just 2 papers later, the new paper. So what's the process, Julian? Do we, with this adjourned paper on page 22, so councillors go to page 22. I just want to follow the proper process because it was left to lie on the table. Do I just kill it off and it then goes to the new paper, or do we adopt this and the new paper? So the new paper is on, the supplementary paper starts on page 37, but the recommendations are...
Which have the wrong dates.
So we'll get to that. So can I just ask for clarity what the process is?
Through your worship, so there isn't. So the other paper on the agenda, I just need to clarify from Charlotte and the team. Does the recommendations of that? Do you want those recommendations adopted as opposed to what's currently left to lie on the table?
So they mimic the two.
Yes.
Okay. So
But they contain that extra information based on the questions.
So that's exactly why I'm asking, because they're not the same, but they. So do I disregard?
In terms of the dates, we would have moved them out to reflect the later. So it would be the new dates and the.
So councillors, what I am then going to do is take you to page 37. Right? So that's the supplementary paper. Jocelyn, thank you. So page 37 is the supplementary paper. 22 is the paper we left to lie on the table.
No.
522 in our agenda.
522.
522. 522.
522, kill that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm also.
522. 87's the annual report.
For some reason it's on.
It's the same paper, just.
522.
Anywho, I know what we're talking about, but we're on different pages, but let's go. We know what we're talking about. Thank you, Charlotte.
Through you, Mrs. Chair. Good morning everyone. Council considered a report on the 21st of August recommending the adoption of a proposed mobile traders bylaw. And at that meeting, several matters were raised. So this follow-up report, which is on page 522, provides additional information and clarification to support a decision. So in particular, it addressed a few questions around the bylaw's applicability to community and occasional traders, police check requirements, and potential compliance costs. So we are taking the report as read today. Staff do recommend that council adopt the bylaw to ensure that we maintain the appropriate regulation and to avoid a lapse when the current bylaw expires, which is May next year. So if adopted today, the new bylaw would be publicly notified in October and come into effect in November. So we do have a few subject matter experts in the room as well today to answer any technical questions, but I'm not open to your questions.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, you had a bit to say on this last time. When we went around to all these events, everyone's saying make things easier, get rid of hoops and red tape. The submitters in this paper asking to make things easier. For me, we should be looking at this with a lens. How can we make this easier for people? And to me, we've added more hurdles and more things they need need to do. I've read the next paper, which clarifies things, because we talked about insurance being mandatory, and then when you read the next paper, they can add it if necessary. To me, insurance is up to the person. We say it could blow up a council building. Council's got its own insurance. We shouldn't be putting extra burdens on people. Some people can't get insurance because of their history, because of their credit rating and everything else. So that gets rid of people who can't be mobile vendors. On page 541, it says that application must be received within 20 working days. So it's not should be, it says it must, which says if it's not in within 20 working days, they've missed out to me, because it's not a should, it's a must. It also says it must include a police check. When you go to page 570, we're the only council out of all the councils requiring this. So we're sort of going over and above any other council. For me, I'm happy with the paper. If we take out the must include a police check and must be in within 20 days, otherwise I'm not happy where it lands at the moment.
Thank you for that. Councillor Cranston.
Unfortunately, I don't support that, because it does put the onus should be on an operator. I mean, if they do something that does harm someone in the public, scalding from food burns, traffic issue, there could be a multitude of things that they could do. And then if they're not covered, who's covering it? I mean, it's, every business needs to have insurance, especially public liability. It's just the way of the world. So to have an operator that's not insured and something happens to a member of the public, who picks up the tab? Insurance should be one of it. So as far as police sketch go, I mean, this was discussed last time. We went into it in quite depth. It's not overly burdensome if someone that's got a traffic violation or something like that. It's major offences that we're looking at. We're not going in there to try and find minimal offences that we can stop their operation. That's not the intention at all.
Councillor Parata.
I'm halfway between Teddy and Andy. I think that the police check part is necessary, particularly in and around the serious crimes and serious fraud. So I think that's important, and that scope, that part is specific to if that person is a danger to the community and to engaging with the community. So I think that part is important for our community to know and understand. But also, I sort of sit with Teddy in that mobile traders are the kinds of economies that start, or industries that start in small communities, and they travel to smaller communities, which means that as a region we benefit if we have more of those that are popping up. And also it's a really good way for our youth to begin in terms of their smaller businesses. It's a really low risk way, and I think that we should consider it like that. And I sort of am with Teddy and feel that we've not removed as many barriers as potentially we could have. And I agree that insurance is up to the individual, because not everyone can afford it, and sometimes that is the reason that things like small businesses can't start. So I feel like that's up to the individual, and I agree with Teddy in terms of council has its own insurances to look after ourselves. And so that's kind of where I sit, and I personally am probably like it's not quite ready for us to move, and we might need to leave it for the next council. Like, there are just some things I think we could address to remove any unnecessary barriers so that whānau can trade in this way and our region can be the better for it.
I wanted to make a comment. Thank you for that, and thank you for all comments. But somewhere in this paper, and I can't find, because my paper numbers are different than your paper numbers, but when I read it, last Friday night, it does say here, if we are not going to adopt this, so I want us to work on it and get there, if we can, because if we're not going to adopt it, we're going to waste staff time and push out a process which I would rather us debate out and get to a position that we agree on than we've already relied on the table. So if I can urge councillors, we'll get back to you, Councillor Thompson. I just want to give everyone who hasn't spoken yet the opportunity, if they want to have a say. But can I urge councillors, if we can work towards, I'm not saying we have to, if we can't adopt it, great, but I need us to give it our best go to see if we can work towards a policy that we can adopt. Okay.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
The question is, how alignment is our bylaw compared to other regions? What, are we...
Page 570.
Sorry?
Page 570, it compares it.
Page 5.
Page 570, it compares us to all the other councils.
Yeah, so the comparison is just around a particular question that you had.
No.
It's not.
It's just a couple of councils.
Some.
Right. I remember that.
So what are the issues we're dealing with? Police, insurance and police. So let's debate those two issues.
The insurance isn't under as a must, it's something we can do, so we don't have to do that. The only two that I'm concerned about are the two being a must, saying it must be in within 20 working days, and the application must include a police check. We're the only, comparing us to all those other councils, we're the only councils requiring that, so that's what I want to do.
So can I just ask that staff respond to the question in regards to police certificate and why we are requiring it, where it looks in comparison, it might not be the same. Thank you.
I might just get John or V to come up and talk to that, because it is something we currently do, so they can explain what it looks like.
Morning. So the question we need answered is why we ask for a police certificate if, and what is the justification behind it, and if we compare ourselves to other councils, it might not be a requirement for other councils. So if you can address that, thank you.
I guess thank you everybody. I think it's important to understand that we don't want to put other council in a position we can be liable later on for something that we're supposed to take in consideration. Now, for the police check, is the police check and police vetting is two different things. This type of police check is basically something in relation to, we don't want give a registration to a person maybe that be involved with, I don't know, processing meth in a vehicle, or the restriction order for a person for family violence or for criminal. So basically this is a lighter check.
So you say that's just a casting a net to see if someone has a criminal record, like you say, drug dealing or abuse or something. That's what you're saying. It's not a deep dive into someone.
Yes, because the last thing we want is to have somebody with a restriction order in front of the house of the person, you know. And then again, this process in the last 5 years, actually, the police check has been done, but in the last 5 years, we didn't encounter any issue with that. But if we encounter something like that, there will be potentially a commission to, I don't know, from South Street or for this number, you can open
So have you...
space in front of the person you have a restriction, which is a sensitive thing to do.
So it might be someone that have a restriction, I can't come close to Rob, so I can't park my van in front of Rob's house.
Thanks for that.
You have a restriction order, but Rob, it won't be nice for you.
Just as an example, a practical example is if there's like protection order or something. Just a supplementary question then, when the public comes in and asks they want a license, do they push back on the police certificate that they or the police check that needs to be done?
That's part of the process. So basically, what have at the moment we don't have any. We never had any issue with that. So it's something is that the community does. Also, our belief is that when a person wants to engage with the community in selling, trading goods, they already have, the mindset is already, they comply with the law, they comply with the legislation. And again, the process is quite smooth. It's not as cumbersome as it appears to be. So,
Annie?
That's the question.
Yes, I know.
Thank you. So once the police check is done on a vendor, that's done just once? They don't need to do that every time?
No.
One to one, or how often?
When they apply for registration, but the registration, and usually it goes for the year.
Right. And does that apply to them and their staff? Or just them?
No, just on the vehicle and the person who, the operator. And then again, we never came across issues so far, but again, it's just to empower the council to put exemption or condition in a way that we are helping the community serve. Because again, if we're reducing our checks, then what happens that there is a possibility that a person has already been affected by certain situation of violence, of criminal, and get exposed to something that is, in the first place, should not be exposed with. So again, I believe, there is a totally different process to go through for a police vetting, this is not the case. It's the equivalent for us to call the police and say, are you okay with this vehicle or with this person? And they say yes. Or they will say, potentially they could say, we are happy with the vehicle, but we are not happy if they operate, in normal road, 20 normal road. They don't say why. They just say they don't know, and there's some consideration if we could do something like that, and then there will be a discussion.
James?
So just through the chair, with some clarity why we will have these sorts of measures in places. The Food Act is a really good example. So there are multiple examples of prosecution successfully undertaken in relation to food safety. Not just food safety, there's other prosecutions, people selling fake pharmaceuticals, people selling fake therapeutic things. That happens quite a lot in these types of environments and industries. So we would want to avoid giving someone a mobile trader's sort of license to go ahead and sell stuff if they had a prosecution for food safety, for example, which is quite a big industry when you talk about mobile trading. There have been actual examples in this community where MPI are prosecuting people. So I just thought that might be at the far extreme, but that's what we're trying to capture, so that we're not giving people a license to trade when they're clearly being prosecuted for something of the same nature. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Councillor Gregory and then Councillor Telfer.
Thank you. I see the police check as a safety net for our community. And for example, you wouldn't want a convicted paedophile selling ice creams to our children. So I really cannot see any problem with it.
Councillor Telfer and then Councillor.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well covered on page 528.26, 27. These checks are not a full vetting of individuals, but rather a verification of both the applicant and their vehicle, e.g. ensuring the vehicle is not stolen, registration, warrant, current, identifying a clear public safety risk. And point 27, police are only provide information to council in exceptional circumstances where there is a relevant risk, such as serious drug or sexual offending, or where a mobile trading business may be used as a cover for unlawful activity. So, we don't want to be put in that position. And it's also protecting the other mobile vendors that are there in likes of the farmers market or something.
Councillor, I'll come back to you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Faria. Ria, and then Farehinga. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine was more around because it is quite specifically written, mine was more about the enforcement. So once it goes through the police and then it comes to the council, who then deems or decides that it is a serious or it's not a serious. So could we word it that it is crimes relating to children, food safety, distribution of drugs and family violence? Could we word it in such a way that it was actually quite specific about the types of previous offences that we're looking for, and we're not looking to penalise people for lesser crimes? Because I'm also thinking about reformed criminals as well, that might have a police, you know, something that they did in their early 20s that related to the distribution of drugs or something, but actually they've not had anything on their criminal record for the last 30 years. So it's all those kinds of details that I'm unsure about how that enforcement, I don't want the enforcement to penalise people who are making a genuine effort to be great citizens and to get into mobile vending.
Councillor Wharenga.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It's council right, so you're supposed to stand. In the current bylaw under section 10, on page 560, there's this whole section around considerations for the issue of a licence, right? And it's that part that, like Councillor Rea, I'm also concerned with. I feel like there's enough of a leeway to allow, say, the likes of reformed, hood-raised kids that I grew up with, who are now adults, who are trying to do different things with their lives in order to be able to, you know, fundraise via making hangi and all of those kinds of things, to be able to still apply for a police check and we still grant them that license, you know. It's in the application of those functional parts that I guess we're all concerned with. I'm supportive of the current bylaw and the changes that it's indicated. I'm also supportive of the fact that police checks are already something that we do. I think that they're necessary and I think that they're good. It's the application of how we do those things. So that it's not a barrier to some people who are trying to change their leaf, but it also is definitely a barrier to those who just go around dishing out fake medicine or have past Food Act violations or have antisocial behaviour, all of those kinds of things. I think that if we have a police check, those who already know they shouldn't be will self-check out of the entire process and then not follow through. You know, so I think that the point that Councillor Thompson has brought up is worthy of the discussion because it is serious. On the flip side, we don't want to be an organisation that just blanket applies this one thing and then we go, oh, you've got a blip over here. No, I mean, I don't feel like any of us reasonably want to do that. But the devil is in the details, right? So I'd just really like to encourage that that we have some kind of guidance, like what others have spoken about, around the considerations for issue of the licence, in order to make sure that there's a focus on positive community benefit, and that the line is is around safety, food safety, etc., etc. So, thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thompson.
Yeah, I think everyone's missed my point. We've always done police vetting, and I'm happy with doing police vetting. My point was we've gone from us doing the police vetting to them now having to put a police check into their application. So they need to pay for a police check and put it in their application. It says must include a police check.
That's not correct.
Well, if you page 41, it says they must include a police check in their application.
These checks are free.
There's no cost associated.
There's no cost associated.
Well, I suppose it's more the fact that they now need to go and get a police check and put it in their application, where we used to just do the police check in their vetting. That's what's changed.
No, we actually provide the information, the check with the police. It's not something that the applicant does, so there is no. The only thing you have to fill it up the form. So again, is correct.
They just need to consent that the
police check.
So if you go to page 541, it says the applicant must include a police check in their application. So we need to change the wording of that case.
Part of the process.
So we'll change the wording to what actually happens, Councillor Thompson.
It is clear on
It is clear on the form that they just need to consent to council then asking for the police vetting. So it's not an extra step where they need to.
So this is actual bylaw on,
Yeah, we can.
our actual bylaw says they must include a police check in their application, so we need to change the
So
wording.
they're saying they'll tinker with the wording.
Yeah.
You and then you.
Just for clarity on that, there's a really good reason that's in there, is because the applicant has to give permission for you to do a police check. That's what's in there.
Okay, I think we're now starting to split here. Councillor Wharehinga.
Sorry, one thing, thank you very much, Worship. One thing I do want to highlight, and maybe Mr. Beatty can provide clarity on this, but because I've had to make an application for my own police check for certain roles, and it was because that organisation couldn't get the police check themselves because of the nature of who they were. So I'm just wondering if how it's written in there is because functionally we can't do it a certain way or something like that. So I just want to make sure that we're not changing wording of a bylaw that's been set up to be in line with some legal structure just off the cuff. So I would like to hear from staff in regard to that.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess again, it's important to stress the difference between police vetting, police check. So there was concern in terms of, people that have been through tough time and they've been breaking the law, and it was, okay, we don't want to penalize these people that some history, and that won't happen because it's not police vetting. So there is no any attached mandatory requirement linked to the vetting itself. It's not a vetting, it's a police check, which again is the equivalent to a phone call to the police, which they happen because it never happened so far, but if they happen, it will be in relation to the trading only. So it is like this vehicle, what are you doing? Okay, yes or no. In terms of really life, where the concern that they are totally legit, what you were pointing out, but in reality, there is a vetting, which again is different procedure, different obligation for us.
I understand that. I went through a police check. I applied for a police check because the organisation, and it's just the legal part that I just want to make sure of.
Just to answer your question, so that the team already can and do that, so changing the wording wouldn't impact.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am going to tie a bow around this discussion because I do think we have thrashed it out. We have addressed issues, gotten answers that is satisfactory. I am going to take you to a page on this new agenda which I have, which is not page 38 in my agenda, but page 5. This is why I started with this weird paper, because mine was on a... Anywho, I'm going to take you to page 522, councillors, in the agenda, which there are the recommendations which now replace the adjourned paper we had. Moved by Councillor Cranston, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Contrary? Carried. Thank you, team. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks, John. Thanks, Charlotte. Thanks, Vincenzo. I am now going to run according to your papers. We are quickly going to pass the the recommendations to council, and then we're going to move to the annual report. So page 36 is a very straightforward paper, which is committee recommendations. Can I have a mover or a seconder? That is just that moved by Councillor Wharehinga, seconded by Councillor Ria. Any questions or queries? All in favour? Contrary? Okay, Nadine, I am going to pass over to you. We are now moving to page 37, which is the annual report.
Tēnā tātou, we've got a presentation that we're going to with each of the directors presenting their areas of responsibility. So just wait for Julian to pop that up, please. And then as your slides come up, Julian. the annual report this year, which represents year one of our 3-year recovery plan. So once again, you will see, those of you that were at Audit and Risk, we received an unqualified audit opinion, which is great. It means our financial systems are sound and our community can have confidence in the integrity of the numbers that are in the report. Just reflecting on 2025, we've made a strong progress on recovery, so it feels like we're coming out the other end of it. A lot of it has been around investment and fixing our infrastructure and healing the environment. And you can really see that as you look through the annual report. It is all about our essentials, our critical infrastructure and our environment. And it's really interesting kind of thinking about some of the popular threads that are going around Facebook around the beautification of our city, which means that people have kind of moved on, which is a good thing, but a great challenge, and it's also a challenge for council to be thinking about going into the future. On our infrastructure, so you've had a lot of updates around this. We've reconnected large parts of the roading network. We're all in a really good position to hit the market with our tenders are going out so that construction can get underway for the construction season. So you'll see a whole lot of activity on our network coming up. Most of that groundwork's been done and we've timed it strategically so we can leverage the best amount of funding that we can using NZTA along with our negotiated funds from central government for recovery. Despite this, we've kept this up with what we've planned in our financial strength, and Pauline's going to speak to this more, but our rates increases remain aligned with what you set out in the 3-year plan. Revenue and expenditure have largely tracked to plan, though we've got some capital project timing which has created some variance which will be explained further. But crucially, most of our recovery costs have been funded through grants and income, and so rates revenue is about 37% of the total revenue that we've received, showing that actually we've been supported really well by central government and that ratepayer funds are going a long, long way. Comparatively from 60% pre-Gabrielle. So these are just some of our community highlights which are outlined in the annual report, and you can see everything varying from a day in the life, which was a program from with years 11 to 13 students, getting hands-on experience across council, encouraging them into thinking about future employment, also partnering for non-for-profits to recover and reuse material from the Category 3 homes, and right down to connecting with farmers on field days. So lots of different activities. And over that period of time, the recovery story, so you're aware, as I said before, the roading network, so 98% of our minor slips have now been repaired, and as I mentioned, our complex rebuilds are underway at the critical stages going out to market, along with our community-led recovery plans. You've been well briefed on flood protection, so we've been doing a whole lot of work over the last year around the engagement with the Te Karaka community, rebuilding that trust and getting support around what their preferred option is for flood control. We nearly completed our Cat 3 buyout, so really happy with that, and mitigation works are still underway for Cat 2 homes, but we're kind of almost at the end of that process. Forestry management has been a massive focus over the last 12 months with the establishment of the Transition Advisory Group, and hear a bit more about the final outcome from that process there. Including, we've done a lot of that mapping work on the indicative transition zone, which was previously known as 3B overlay. Land, again, we've looked at more work around land management efforts, so cleanups on the silt, the productive lands and woody debris has become a major focus for this council. And I mentioned the sustainable position. So in terms of our performance, I think it's really important to highlight where we were compared to last year. So those are the performance measures that we track. So the 102 performance measures overall, we are achieving 78%. There's still some work to do, and I'm sure that you will have some questions as we go forward, but we're really happy with how we've tracked comparative to last financial year of 64%. So I think what you can see, you know, what this report does show is where the focus has been for this council, and a lot of it is buried underground with infrastructure or in the roads. It's not the actual things that you can look around and see, like a brand new pool that's open, but rest assured there's been a whole heap of activity, and I haven't even mentioned us responding to Three Waters and local government, central government reform changes. So it's been a mammoth year. And I'll hand over to
Thank you. It's a little bit difficult to see, but essentially on the bottom line, when we talk about on the bottom line net surplus and deficit, this is kind of the realised ones. We have an overall net surplus of 30-odd million, and mostly that net surplus is in relation to receiving capital grants. It is not that we overcollect rates, it's just the capital grants that we receive, and then that goes towards our capital projects, and that just means it reduces our need to borrow. We did estimate to have more than originally, but that was the timing of a lot of the capital programs and the recovery programs. The grants will still occur when the works are done over the next 2 to 3 years, so we're not affected by losing those grants. It's just a kind of a timing issue. Also, just to be aware of, last year we're a little bit ahead or where we expected to be at that 23-24, and we did 20 million in there. So as we know that the delivery of the recovery program is over a 3 to 4 year period, there are variances to where we have, but overall it doesn't really affect that bottom line. So the capital investment, and this is kind of just give you an indication of the uplift of capital investment that needed to occur from, say, pre-Gabrielle times, and even in the times of pre-COVID, where there was a PGE uplift. So this kind of this is the biggest level of investment that we've ever done. Last year was obviously at 91 million, now we're 99. We expected to do, we not expected, we planned or provisioned for it being higher, but that was to do with the timing of those capital projects of when they occur. But it does represent a significant amount of 3 times the normal levels that we had prior to the 2021 period. So in terms of these are the benchmarks that all councils are required to include in their annual report. So this is trying to give you the reason against those councils. And there are a total of 9 that we actually have, and they are disclosed according to the local government financial reporting prudence regulations. So again, they are to enable comparison across all councils to say how they are doing in performing. And they are designed to actually show how you perform financially against what was planned. And that is also whether council is prudently managing its revenue, expenses, assets, liabilities, and general financial dealings. So they're fairly significant. We met all of them, bar one, and this was the operational control. operational control is a benchmark which says, what did you plan to do in terms of your net cash flows from operations versus what you did? And so within our planned operations or grants, we have the capital grants that were coming in. And because we know that's a timing issue, it says actually you didn't quite meet it because you had planned for some of that capital grants to occur. But we also can see in the 2 previous years, we had more than, so it's a timing issue. Effectively, all but from that one, we had received all of the benchmarks met. So this is a little bit as our Chief Executive had said, what is the makeup of our revenue and what is the main determinants. Where we are now, because it is a recovery kind of the plan, what it actually shows that is 37% of our total revenue comes from rates. And that the rest of the funding that we have is from external sources. That doesn't mean we're fundamentally better off, but it means that we actually, the burden of those additional costs is not actually on the ratepayer. So in this one, and we now, every year we kind of compare against the unitaries. Where they are, and if you've already been reported on that now, it is now standard reporting that occurs within our cohorts. So this, what we have over to the right-hand side is 23-24, mainly because the unitaries haven't had their annual reports to compare them. So what we've actually got here, what we have received the 25, our results, and then it's just trying to give you those comparisons against 23-24. But what it's saying is we have the lowest rates, we have the most assets, and we have the lowest debt. Yes, we've got more operating revenue, but we've got more expenditure, but as we have said, 37% of the overall impact is on the rate. So most of that revenue is the uptake to doing recovery, which is externally funded. And I think, there we go. That's this brief snapshot.
Okay. Next to my left, James and Jocelyn.
Perfect. So I'm going to start off by acknowledging our level 3 teams. Firstly, the building consents team. So our team has had a standout year. Our statutory performance lifted significantly, with 98% of building consents processed within 20 working days, compared to 80% the previous year. So we also saw a sharp increase in building warrant of fitness audits, with 115 done compared to 20 the last year, which not only... Oh,
should we slide on?
There we go. Compared to 20 the year before, which brings us a lot closer to the sort of expectations from MB, and just really reflects the team's targeted efforts on this. Another good news story is around pool safety. So to meet the new 3-yearly inspection requirements, we increased residential pool inspections from 8 to 12 per week, and we supported by a dedicated inspector, and that's now in place. So that's our building consents team. With our resource consents team, also big heed to them. They also had a uplift in their performance. The statutory performance improved markedly from, it's now 2024-2025, 95% of consents were processed within 28 time frame, up from 70% in the 70% range the previous year. So significant uplift, which reflects their strong delivery and systems improvements, including new standard operating procedures, guidebooks for our external planners who we engage to work on our behalves, and much clearer cost recovery tools. So we've also implemented an executive summary process with iwi and Hapu, which is now fully embedded with Te Atanga Mahaki and also Ngati, ensuring that those voices are meaningfully integrated into the consenting process. And we've also began, and with help of our Māori Partnerships and Engagement team, began a building and resource consents quarterly newsletter, which goes out to the community, keeping them well informed of our changes and improvements.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Just a couple of highlights from my area. It's always really difficult to choose what to highlight or what not to highlight. Sometimes it's really easy. And you might be wondering, why noise control? Well, noise control is an area from past practice that we've been trying to improve in terms of response times, in terms of performance. And just glad to report from the team there that they're happy with how that's tracking. And I think it's looking good in terms of the annual report, in terms of the performance measures that we set around that. And no big surprise, huge amount of work's been going into that enforcement order space. And whilst it says like 5 for forestry and 1 for earthworks, the amount of work that goes into getting that.
You want to get the right.
Oh, sorry, it's back one. Sorry. Yeah, huge amount of work, part of the team investigators. I have lost track of how many kilometres they've walked, how many miles they've driven, etc., but it is a huge undertaking. And it's something that we've been fully dedicated to since Gabrielle in particular, and that work continues. So just you've seen some of that. I have emailed those things through from time to time as those things have progressed. I don't want to sound like a broken record anymore, so you're only beginning the ones where I'm like, they need to know this because there's been something that's happened. Kia ora.
Right, so we thought in terms of sort of our key challenges which were faced over the last year, and I'll begin now with building consents. While the performance improved, the team did face a really high demand for the building services, particularly around the post-Cyclone Gabrielle rebuilds. So we're working really hard on recruitment, retaining skilled staff in that competitive market, as well as new regulatory requirements. Our continued work on for us as a team. That includes the 3 yearly residential pool inspections, but all of these add a wee bit of pressure to our workloads. But we're working real hard to manage those. Now, in resource consents. We continue to manage the high complexity and high volumes at times of consents, particularly in the forestry infrastructure in the coastal marine area as well, which add the levels of complexity. So the implementation and of course the rolling changes to with regards to the reform and changes to the RMA has meant that we're continually updating our processes, our systems to counteract those and to align with. So ultimately, we're continuing to work on that and looking more towards building our staff capability around our most risky activities, particularly in forestry and in the coastal marine area. So. Yeah, that's probably it. Thanks, Ruth.
Cool. And just in my area, wanting to improve access to local data, that's twofold, getting more data in, but probably equally important is making sense of the data that we've got. So we have lots of great systems and lots of great data that we're able to translate and take full benefit from in terms of forward planning and future planning. But there is data that we do have, but we need to translate it more with better systems. That's why we have the Enterprise Solutions project. And one of my spaces was human resources, which was the first cab off the rank, and the rewards and benefits associated with that. Gone are the days where you had to, pull teeth to get quality information out of your own data where human resources is concerned. I can think of something I need today and the team gives me a dashboard the following day. So that's what happens when you have good systems and good information housed in one spot. So linked to that is that improvement around system and process, and that's a continuing cycle for us in this compliance space as well. Environmental data and how we translate that data, how we use that data is a big forward focus and challenge for me. and Jocelyn, our teams together, and continuing to manage high-risk compliance issues. So, you know, when we get those high-risk consents and, you know, how the team's working together and how we sort of operating boots on the ground with our clients, our customers in the community as well. So continuing to educate and work alongside people, you know, to get the outcome for the community. Cheers.
That's wonderful. I think it's over to Tim.
Tim.
Okay. I'll see you shortly.
Morena, I have mine summarised on a single slide, such as the efficiency of lifelines.
Waiting for a little Easter egg.
It's been a big year, obviously. In our highlights, I'd like to draw attention to, for the three main areas I look after: land, rivers and coastal roads, local roads and three waters. So this year we've been ahead of schedule with our works on Waipoa stop banks. So ultimately that might see us complete that work a couple of years ahead of originally budgeted, which is great news for our region. And so on a similar vein, Anzac Park revetment was completed quicker than we initially anticipated. For local roads, we're really tracking into a very big season this year and acknowledging too a lot of that's recovery work. But we've managed to get through most of winter, touch wood, in reasonable shape this year. That also landed a few big acknowledgements of the challenges we face in the roading space. For three waters, we've submitted our water service delivery plans, which was a statutory requirement under the new local water well legislation. We've completed renewals of nearly 60 kilometres of relined pipes, a number of manholes. Drain Wiser's continued to deliver results that we can materially see by improved overflow performance of wastewater, with over 3,000 gully traps repaired and 162 downpipes. That's an ongoing program that's received strong support and will continue to. And our treatment plants have complied really successfully this year too, particularly when considered on a national scale, which we're doing more regularly now with the development of regulation from Oneone, our quality regulator, and the slow formation of economic regulator, which will slowly be phased in over the next few years under the Commerce Commission. Okay, so a forward focus for us is continuing in our Waipoa river upgrades in flood protection and regional flood protection out. So heavy amount of design, modelling and engagement, community engagement is happening ongoing for the next few years in that space. That's a real challenging space to be in too. With roads, the strategic roading network review is now sitting with the Transport Agency for endorsement and maybe some comments. We're still awaiting that, but that's a fundamental change in the way we're looking at maintaining our local roads sustainably, and landing that will be a huge amount of mahi for us at every level, including our procurement processes. It will include our engagement with industry and sectors, particularly high users, agricultural, forestry, etc. And it will have a fundamentally shift a lot of what we're aiming to do to maintain our network. In three waters, there's also, looking forward, a lot of change in. I've already mentioned the upcoming new regulators in the economic space. There's discussions or development ongoing and communication with our communities about over the next few years on what model we might be compelled towards or what one we might find more benefit in. And we're working with that. So a very mobile space at the moment. So challenges, lands, rivers and coastal was just stretching the available money that we have for the most benefit for our communities and equity where possible as well. Roads and footpaths is meeting financial sustainability, so the strategic roading network review is there's not enough money for everything we'd like. So how do we actually address that? And Three Waters, ageing infrastructure, although we know our infrastructure is not as aged as the national average, we're okay, but we are ramping up our renewal program over the next decade to get us in a better space and adjusting to new legislation and continual pressure, I guess, or opportunity to coordinate more nationally or amongst our neighbours or even individually. We should choose to continue like that. So that's a summary of where we're sitting.
Oh, there's Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
Nice work on the tie, Tim.
My summary isn't quite as succinct as Tim's, but as I can. So, over the biodiversity, so it highlights this year a really environmental transformation program, 49 hectares of actively planted reserve of land and a further 59 hectares progressing through natural regeneration, which is fantastic. So nature doing its thing. Haumanu to order, stream assessments underway, and that's great for us to understand those environments and restoration planning is happening. Catchments and biodiversity, so regional pest control, there's a lot of land, but we've got 662 hectares of possum control in the Waimata, which is completed. Hawke's Bay possum buffer and Bay of Plenty goat buffer have been maintained, so that's good. Land management team just really connecting across the region for improved sustainable land use outcomes, and working closely with the Transition Advisory Group and the Citizens Assembly work. Recreation and amenity, so Peel Street Toilet refurbished, which is fantastic. Lytton West and Ayton Park playground renewals, and also some cool stuff with our wooden natural timber artwork around the region. Kiwa Pool, we've really moved into the planning phase for the outdoor area, so that's well underway. Looking forward to what's ahead next financial year. And 6,000 dune plants, so there's been a real focus on dune restoration and working with our schools in that space. And Waihariri Domain redevelopment is progressing well with our Hapu partnership out there. Cultural activities, so 129 theatre bookings hosted, which is really impressive numbers. Leisner House restored and bilingual signage rolled out are underway. Library visitors are up to 128,000 on site and 719,000 online, so it's really decent numbers for the area. And museum visitors exceeded 56,000, so they both surpassed targets. In our solid waste space, which has been a real focus, we've got growth in Enviro Schools engagement, so a total of 7,700 tamariki students involved across 15 early childhood centres and 32 schools. And the Tukumaru Bay Legacy Landfill remediation is a big piece of planning work that is advancing well, so pretty happy with that. Next slide. That one. Sorry. That one. Focus, sorry. Thank you. focus, so biodiversity, continue to drive the strategic relationships which we have for those biodiversity outcomes. So Waingaki, Haumanu Te Ora and Whaititirangi as key partnerships, but there's many more catchments in biodiversity. So really focusing on that regional plant pest management plan review will be a focus, and strengthening possum and goat control across the region, but particularly those boundaries. Finalising recreation and amenity, finalising our cemetery capacity and our expansion plans in that area, and then also the CBD revitalisation, working closely with that team to really drive forward some initiatives. Cultural activities, finalising the Hawaii Tūranga installation and Te Matua platform with our partners, and advancing planning for the Star of Canada and Paratahi to ensure long-term viability. In the solid waste space, our next WMP, which we've presented to you, but really consulting on that and really driving it forward to make sure that it lands really well with our community. Our smarter bins, so those wheelie bins, real focus there, and also the infrastructure upgrades, particularly around resource recovery centres and doing a better job there. And biodiversity, so challenges, this is just our challenges space. So the real challenge for us in a number of our portfolios is the short-term nature of our contracts, particularly with government. So it's fantastic to get the funding, but often they're short-term, and we need to be thinking long-term about how we sustain that funding for improved outcomes. It's the same for catchments and biodiversity. Some other challenges for catchments and biodiversity around the wallabies, goats and invasive plants require constant monitoring and control to prevent spread. Recreation and amenity, so community expectations are rising faster than budget, so especially for play spaces, toilets and the CBD amenities. So really how do we make the most of the funding we have to achieve the outcomes. And ageing assets and environmental risks, so really responding to those with the funding we have. In terms of cultural activities, public arts strategy review has been delayed, and there's murals and restoration projects on case-by-case basis, on that basis. Just once again, funding pressures and those ageing assets. In solid waste, curbside performance is below target, below where we really want to be, and we are obviously, that's a real focus in the year ahead as well. Landfill volumes remain high, and the real piece there is around how we do better in our recycling space, so that's a real and that's me.
Okay, Jocelyn.
How's the clicker?
The clicker is clicking.
Okay. So moving into our strategy and policy, as well as our environmental science and monitoring teams. Our strategy and policy team have been navigating a significant period of, as we all know here at this table, legislative and policy change, particularly while we progress the Karakia Resource Management Plan review. However, this year, over the last financial year, the team has significantly advanced the evidence base for the TRMP, including some catchment scale modelling, freshwater quality analysis and ecosystem assessment, as well as progressing our urban plan change, which is a huge highlight and achievement. So Council also achieved a number of important policy milestones. Firstly, a new storm-affected land framework was adopted to guide Category 3 land decisions, ultimately giving clarity and fairness to the community affected by severe weather. Also, we updated the dam policy, so that strengthens the oversight and resilience for dam safety. The local alcohol policy was amended with the CBD removed from the sensitive sites rule. And alongside our Lifelines Hub the Strategic Roading Network Resilience Program business case, that's a mouthful, was completed. Provides a 30-year roadmap to strengthen our local roading network against future risk and will help us prioritize resilience, maintenance and renewal. The team also advanced highly erodible land mapping, introducing Land Overlay 3B, and an interim transition layer, which will equip landowners and council alike with some sharper information to manage erosion and guide sustainable land use across the region. And it's also a key milestone function as we advance our business case and what the future transition will be. I did want to just put a little mention to our climate change response team as well, who has achieved a few milestones and continues to build momentum. Firstly, working on the emissions reduction plan, and which will be released in the coming year, over the next year, and a regional climate change risk and vulnerability assessment, which will ultimately underpin adaptation plan through to 2027. So place-based adaptation planning has started with the Oneone Beach Coastal Adaptation Plan, which is a pilot that will shape future coastal adaptation across Tairāwhiti. Some of the challenges in the strategy and policy planning team, obviously our teams had to navigate significant national reform, which brings about uncertainty with multiple amendments, as mentioned earlier, to the Resource Management Act and new national direction packages. So in addition to heading and leading multiple submissions, it sort of adds to the tensions or the constraints of resources, but also some of the changes have moved some of the goalposts for our local policy development. So we're working really hard on balancing the immediate needs with some long-term strategic planning. Now, in the environmental science and monitoring team, the team has made excellent progress over the 2024-2025 financial year. They delivered annual monitoring across groundwater, rivers, coastal, and recreational water sites, and they are doing a wonderful job in preparing the 5-yearly State of the Environment report, which is due before Christmas. So also a major achievement was the upgrade of the flood forecasting model and communications network, which strengthens our ability to respond to extreme weather events. The team has installed 20 new or upgraded groundwater loggers and added 3 new water quality data loggers, so that expands our environmental monitoring network. And on top of this, 30 same-day flow measurements were taken across East Cape rivers, which significantly improves our knowledge of water availability, particularly through those low flow periods. So really great progress made. In terms of challenges, obviously the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle required some urgent monitoring and data collection, which diverted resources from some of the BAU work, the business as usual work. Also maintaining and expanding the monitoring network across such a vast and remote region can sometimes pose some logistical challenges, but the team are excellent at managing those risks. And also we're, like most councils, continually making sure that we've got the right specialists on board, hydrologists and our specialist scientists remains an ongoing challenge that we continue to work on. So that's me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jocelyn. So as James said, it's really hard just to pick some of the highlights, but our hub is built around connections, so enabling communities to be heard, supporting elected members and strengthening partnerships, especially with Māori. So in terms of our highlights, we've advanced our Māori partnerships through the implementation of our Tiriti compass and also our internal So that's helping our organisation to learn and understand the spaces in which we are working on. We've lifted our engagement across the board, over 1 million visits to our website, which is an increase of up to 9%. We've done 13 consultations in the last wee while with basically ranging from our alcohol bylaw to local water done well. Our 3-year plan was a winner in terms of the consultation documents, which was pleasing for us. And in the democracy support and comms, we're running the local elections, which we've had unprecedented engagement with in terms of our campaign, and we hope that our inauguration and that our induction will be as successful. In terms of the challenges, and this is a national challenge, it's around meeting the growing community expectations for open with time limits and increased engagement. So we've got some plans in place to not only help our council but also our councillors in the next triennium. And also around our Māori partnerships and making sure that it's not just about the policy, it's also about the practice. So it's embedding our tools to ensure that they're widely known and used through the organisation so that it becomes common practice for us. And also making sure that our current existing arrangements in terms of the work that we do with Māori remain current and relevant, so doing a lot of review in that space.
So just in the support services space, digitisation and ICT upgrades, so we continue with our hardware upgrades, and that's more than just laptops, it's servers, etc. That are cyclical upgrades and renewals. We've done quite a lot of work in the firewalls area as well, so that's just protecting us from a cyber security perspective, and that's across our network, including core infrastructure that council owns. I'm happy to report that we see through the digitisation project, so just a reminder about that, we've got 89,000 files, some 6 million documents, and we have scanned 3 million of them. Painful there. And of course, can't not mention Enterprise Solutions project in terms of the finance module. It went live this year as well. Not without its hiccups, none of these sorts of projects are, but substantively speaking, I think we're getting there, ironing out the odd kink which you experience when you go live, but overall, and this is from experts in the field who have done these sorts of things in the past, we're a bit of a textbook for the most part, so that's pleasing because it's always a freak out moment when we're doing, core infrastructure systems that are at the centre of what we do every day. But yeah, really proud of the combined efforts of the teams that have worked on that project. It's been a mission. Yeah, and I don't know if Pauline wants to mention the next one, or I'm happy to, but and this is probably a shout out to everyone, but in particular Pauline's team, and Jocelyn's team, and Tim down the back there, who continue to work on core statutory plans and making sure they're delivered. Annual plan and LTP development underway is happening now. Woohoo! LTP.
Thank you. Is that everyone?
And then there's just the civil defence, but what more can I say about what that team's done? It speaks for itself, so some amazing work done by an amazing group of people coordinating and collaborating with our key emergency partners. So thank you, big year, and thank you all for your leadership, governance and support to help us deliver nationally.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to all the directors. Thank you, Nadine, for walking us through and showing us what we've done well, where our team's achieved, what the challenges are, and what we can do different. Really appreciate that. And I just want to also tie in that yesterday we had Stuart, our auditor, here as well from Ernst & Young, which we're very happy with the audit, which will go in the front of this once all the paperwork is signed. So thank you also to Pauline and the team for working closely with Stu and the Ernst & Young team to get unqualified audit for the Gisborne District Council. Okay, the floor is open if people want to ask questions, or Pauline, you go first.
Sorry, just an administration things. As the agenda was being sent out, the audit was still in progress, and that's kind of standard. And so what you have there were some changes, or as we go through, so what you have in front of you, there were some minor changes from that particular time to where we are now. Some of it being, for our argument's sake, some of the two roading performance measures which weren't able to be, we didn't have the information because it was from NZTA. That information has been updated. So part of those, there's some minor things tweaking within there, but that just goes through it. You have this in front of you, so that's for administration purposes.
Cool. Okay, floor is open if people have questions or queries. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, more of a comment. We've done a huge amount of work in the last few years, but we look at our total revenue, 235, and our borrowings have almost tripled. We've done so much more work than we have in the past, and we're comparing it to years which we got all the PGF funding. So what we're comparing it to isn't even a normal year, because the PGF funding doubled the amount of work we had. So we've actually done way more work than usual. We clearly can't continue borrowing that sort of money, and we're not going to get that same amount of funding moving forwards. So I think we need to be real with the contractors and everything that they've all scaled up for this work. That work's not going to be there moving into the future, and I think we need to make it prioritise. With that being the case, prioritise giving the work we do have to local. So we need to change our way of doing things to make sure that work's going to local. Just the highlights when I'm not on the wastewater committee, but that was a big upset of the community, and council got nailed for that every time it rained, all over public media and everything. I'm not on wastewater committee, but you know when it rains, we're not getting that noise now, so we've come a long way in that space. And something being from a building background, something I've harped on about is the building consents and resource consents. 23 86%, 24 86%, and then 25 98.2%. Also resource consents, we've got 23 77%, 24 78%, 25 95%. So we're listening to the community, and nothing. You can't change things overnight. But we are heading in the right direction. Congratulations.
Councillor Thompson. I'm going to go Wharehinga Foster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm happy to move this. I really want to acknowledge staff for all of the work that's gone into the work that has formed the reports inside of this annual report. There's been a huge amount of work. That we've discussed this entire time over the last year and a half, or the annual report timeline. There's been so much work. If I think back and reflect on the first half of my service in council, those first 6 years, it's been nothing like the last 6 years. And those first 3 years of being a deputy mayor, these last 3 years through recovery has been nothing like the 3 years preceding that. It's been unreal, and I really want to acknowledge staff for the amount of work that has gone into all of that work that's been done in order to be reported in this annual report. I'm more than happy to move the recommendations on page 38, and quite chuffed that it gets to be one of, the last things that I do as a council. Thank you very much. Also, while I have the floor, I want to acknowledge Mr. Barry and Mr. Beatty for wearing ties today. I won't say anything about standard slipping, but hey.
No! When we became councillors, the first thing the mayor gave the men were GDC ties, and everyone wore their ties to the council meeting. But Councillor Foster, it's seconded by Councillor Papururiwai. Councillor Foster, if you snooze, you lose. Then Ria, thank you.
Thank you. I was going to second it as well because, you know, this report just highlights what the amount of work that's been done over the last year in particular. And I've been on council for a long time and I've never ever seen the work that's been done by this council, and I'm so proud to be involved and be in part of the governance and the decision-making process to help this get through. You know, we've helped our community hugely. We've made so much inway into our recovery plan. And you know, there's obviously still more to do, but you know, with the biggest amount of government funding and the least amount of rate spending in comparison, you know, we've just achieved so much. So it's just been a real. You see all the different parts of council that have presented now, you know, and all the different work that's done. You know, you kind of forget about a lot of the different things that we've done over the past because there's been so much of it. But you know, it's amazing to be able to highlight everything. The only thing I would say, it would have been nice to have the report summary separate. If we had had that on or identified the page that it was on as a separate part, that's the only thing that would have been really handy to know. But yeah, it was mind-boggling reading through the whole report. And just seeing all the different things that have been done and all the different financial categories by them, yeah, and you know, there's always room for improvement, but it's been fantastic. And congratulations to all staff and Dean, and in particular, you know, for coordinating. So fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Ria and then Councillor Parata.
Kia ora tātou. I'm going to follow Josh's lead and say that. Kei te tautoko hoki au I ngā kororoko koro I tēnei wā. I just want to support everything that's been said. I mean, 3 years ago when if the directors had got up and delivered that paper, I would have thought they were speaking Chinese because I wasn't had a clue what they were on about. But it was quite delightful to listen to them and to be able to follow it through because we have been on this journey in the last 3 years. So not only did I want to thank our CE, Nadine, but also all of her staff, all of the directors. You have led us, I can speak for myself, you've led us on a journey of learning and discovery over the last 3 years, and we haven't always agreed, and we haven't always, we've challenged you in areas, and you're just amazing. You've stepped up to the plate every time, and I think you don't get recognised enough, and so I just wanted to express my gratitude to your dedication to this mahi and the dedication that your staff make to this mahi. It was really awesome to see te whakatinanatanga, our aspirations from cyclone recovery, seeing those aspirations come into fruition, and also seeing some areas that we need to build upon coming into the next triennium. So I just wanted to support that. I just wanted to say you're all awesome. Thank you so much for the last 3 years and all of your knowledge. And without you, I wouldn't have made it this far. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, just, I support everything that the council has already said. There was just one thing that I just wanted to qualify. It says that our average household income in Te Tairāwhiti is, 70.
120. I thought it was quite high.
Wait, what, guys? 120. Oh, sorry, yeah, $120,000 is the average household income in Te Tairāwhiti, and I just wanted to know, is that because there's some people in Te Tairāwhiti that make a huge amount of money, and does that push the median up? In which case, is there another way for us to qualify this number? Because I'm concerned that it's not a true reflection of our region. I think that it's definitely worth saying that there's a certain amount of our people that make are incredibly wealthy, and I think that's important to acknowledge because wealth is important to acknowledge. But it's also important to probably acknowledge that my understanding of Te Tai Rāwhiti is that the medium income in our region is not $120,000 a year. So I was just wondering, is there another way that we can show the truth? I'm not saying it's not the truth, but is there another way we can show it?
So what is Infometrics? The source that we've got this from is Infometrics, which will be based on Stats NZ data, which Pauline's just said that we've also queried it. But if you look we are still relatively low, so the average net household income nationally has gone up as well. So it's probably relativities, but we have queried whether that was the correct amount.
Can I ask that just in addition to the query that we ask if we can potentially split it out, the people that make the biggest money, can we split it away from the rest of us? Not us. Not us. Sorry, but do you know what I'm trying to explain? Because
I know what you're trying to say.
I think when we present ourselves to the region, guys, it's
just have one person speaking. Thank you.
Just relax. That when we present ourselves to our region, that our people can see themselves in it, and that when we present ourselves to central government, that we also present the truth of what we are, that there is a huge difference between those that have it and those that do not. That's what exists inside our region. But otherwise, I acknowledge the fact that we've been through such a huge and difficult recovery period, and that we're moving towards the future of Te Tai Rāwhiti, where we really consider what our place looks like, how we look after it, and how we live here going forward. And I just wanted to acknowledge what Madam CE said about most of what we've done in this last 3 years is stuff you cannot see. And it's really hard to celebrate the things that you cannot see. But that work, that core infrastructure work, is really important so that we can eventually start thinking about the pretty things that we can celebrate. So I just want to acknowledge the Gisborne District Council for prioritising that mahi, the mahi that is unseen. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just a little bit of clarity, because this comes up quite often. Because it is from national stats, it's not uncommon for households in Gisborne to have 3 or 4 earners within the house. So it's not 1 or 2 people, sometimes it's 3 or 4 people. So sometimes that does confuse the number. And just while I've got the floor, I also want to pass on the congratulations, because it has been awesome. And when we're on the campaign trail and people say, what do rates pay for? Read the annual plan. It's a massive work stream, massive. So, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Wrap it up for us. Councillor Telfer.
I'll stand since.
Oh, next he's going to wear a tie after Smoko.
I do want to acknowledge all the work that's been done, and it's certainly not what I signed up to be involved with, and the work that we've had to do. So I take my hat off to all the visions that have really put the work in to achieve what we have. We've still got a long way to go. But there is one area that I am concerned about, and that's around the actual community satisfaction of our communications on, feeling that they're getting heard and whatnot. And if we look through those areas of whether we've achieved or not, we're not achieving, and some of the targets we're actually setting to achieve are pretty low. There's one here at 30%. So I just think that's one area, and if we listen to the people that contact us about their dissatisfaction, that's the one area I think we really have to listen to. I don't know whether we've quite done it yet. Anyway, next term, we've got plenty of time with no disasters. If we get there.
Councillor Pahuruhuriwai.
I'll stand up too. Tēnā tātou. Tautoko anō ngā mihi kua mihi a kia koutou. The Dean, koutou ko tō tīma. And I think, coming in 3 years ago and then doing the 3-year plan and then seeing the results of all of the work that's gone in, as everyone has said, it's quite mind-blowing. Massive acknowledgement to you, Nadine, to your leadership and the senior leadership team, but all of the teams behind them. And it's quite obvious to see where just the work that gets done across the region. It's not something that our communities see or acknowledge the work that just the powerhouse of money that has to get done, regardless of the weather events, regardless of everything else that's going on, the work needs to continue. And picking up on your acknowledgement at the end there of CEDM and the national acknowledgements that have been made of you and your teams, not just CEDM, but the multitude of awards that have been recognised as well. Those don't come without the due diligence that's needed to be done to qualify those acknowledgements. Thank you, Your Worship, for accepting that I seconded this annual report, which I'm really happy to do alongside Councillor Wharehinga as our last hui. When I'm out there with the whānau and I'm talking to them about understanding the amount of mahi that gets done here by our council, and all the challenges that are faced by the council. We don't have 12 babies anymore, each, thank goodness. But the population, the rating population we don't have. And I take Teddy's point about the fact that a lot of the mahi that we've got done is through money that we wouldn't otherwise have through government, but I also want to acknowledge the fact, you and yourself and Nadine battling hard for us with government to make sure that the region has had the emergency funding that's been needed to recover, help us to recover and to get back on track. And I really hope that this next term, for whoever's around this table, is normal, whatever that looks like going forward, because there really hasn't been one in at least the last 2 terms, COVID before, cyclones, and hopefully the years ahead will be a lot more normal, if there is such a thing. So I'm really happy to second the report, and just a big congratulations to everyone who's pulled it together, but more importantly the work that's gone on behind it, out on the ground throughout the tairāwhiti.
I'll have a turn. Yes, you can't deny the amount of work that's been done over the last 3 years, and congratulations to all staff in that work. There's one area that excites me the most, and that's the strategic network roading review. And when that came across the table, I could see that we have in place, when this thing gets followed through on, we have in place a way of building resilience into our roads. And to me, this is going to be a big focus for this region to get that underway, and we can look forward. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but in the future, we're going to have more resilient roads.
Okay, I'll wrap a bow around it.
Can I just say one more thing?
What did you want to say?
I just want to take the opportunity to thank you, Your Worship, for your work that you've done over the last year and your connection with government and how important it is to this region. You're out there so much, Wellington and around the country, and representing our area and local government and other different forums that you're involved with. So you've gone out of your way to really, and your passion for this region is undeniable. So I just want to thank you on behalf of us. Thank you so much for the work that you've done, because without that, we wouldn't do it now either. Thank you.
I do want to acknowledge, Nadine, you and your team. It's been an incredible tough 3 years. As a region, as Councillor Pahuru Huriwai said, previous term it was COVID. We started off 2019, and immediately after we started it was COVID. Got elected in 2022. Within a month we had Cyclone Hale and Cyclone Gabrielle. And it's been unprecedented times. I want to acknowledge the new councillors. You came into a space where it wasn't normal. It wasn't as usual when you go into a new term. Within the first 6-7 months, you go into a 10-year plan and you start digging, and you immediately had to go into uncharted territory for all of us. So I do want to acknowledge the new councillors who joined the team as well. It's been a tough journey. It has been a rough journey, not a perfect journey. There are always stuff which we can do different and better. But I'm incredibly proud when I read this, of this councillor team around the table who set expectations to to heal our land, like we said in our 3-year plan, heal our place, heal our people. And it is a work in progress. There's still so much to be done. And thank you also to all the directors today showing us these are the things we've worked on, which you highlighted last time, which needed work on, and we could see the movement there. And again saying, yes, we've done this well now, but again, we know these are the issues that the public bring to our attention. I agree with Councillor Telfer. The public want to be part of our decision making. They want us to lean in and ask how they feel about stuff. Hopefully, this next term is a term with no storms, no COVID, nothing weird. So fingers crossed, everyone. But from the mayoral office and from the councillor table, thank you to the staff for what you have done. I know there are challenges ahead, but we are ready. So all in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Let us break for a cup of tea, 15 minutes. 113, which is our sustainable land use business case. And I do welcome Jace, Hilton, Terry. Thank you so much for joining us. Nadine, do I pass over to you, and then you pass over to the team? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are a tag team, literally. So we've got, most of you will know Jason from UPI, Taira Whitiwhenua Collective, and Kerry. Online we've got Kent Dunstan and John Hutchins, who have been instrumental in helping facilitate and pull this together for us. So what we're going to do is a bit of a team on the development of the transition business case. I just want to remind, so the attachments, you've got the executive summary, and you've also got the full business case, which is a work in progress. So there will be grammatical errors, there are areas that are not completed, which is why we don't want you to spend a lot of time on that. This is a field for you to kind of do. So I'll take you through the first lot of slides, and then I'm going to hand over to Kerry. But basically just setting the context about why this matters, and we've just spent the last report kind of talking about the cleanup and things that we've been doing in this space. But as you know, we've got the most erosion-prone region, and this is in the world. So we're highly erodible. We're very young in terms of our geology, and we've got land that really just can't sustain the current type of land use in some places, and it's literally slipping away from us. So Cyclone Gabrielle, a reminder, was a $1.2 billion fix for our region, and we've put a lot of not only central government taxpayer funding but ratepayer funding and the Iwi Collective into addressing the cyclone impacts. We are losing around 1 million tonnes of soil every week, and it's not just soil, it's our future productivity, it's our water that's being impacted, our community safety and infrastructure. And so we need to act now. And this issue sits at the heart of climate adaptation, biodiversity protection and sustainable land use. So that's a reminder of the impact.
and through your worship. The tag was put together August last year, and it was a group of people from a very wide range of interests throughout Tairāwhiti, across all land uses and interest groups. And it was people with a vision for a future for Tairāwhiti. We started with that. We started off a series of scenarios that developed guidelines for how we transition our more vulnerable land in Tairāwhiti going forward. And what we found is we had lots of skills from people. We have most of the answers here. We just need to replicate it across the region. And it was a really good process to be involved in. We've had some wonderful support, and the two guys with us here, Hilton and Jason, the connection through to MPI has been really, really helpful. So we need to replicate where we're going. But what we did have was we had some very good cutting-edge technology to get onto it. It's something we haven't had before. Nothing as refined as this. On the diagram there, the red and the gold are areas where we've got a lot of slip erosion, close to waterways, getting sediment, and anything that's in that sediment when it slips is carried to the waterways. And that was developed by Land Care Research. Very, very helpful and very timely. Nothing's perfect, and there will be anomalies that we need to work through on the ground. The other aspect on there is the green, which was developed by Dr. Mike Martin, and that really reflects a guy who has had a whole career in our region, and it's been really helpful. So those three colours combined together, the gold, the red, and the green, are areas that we really need to transition. And in this example here, that landowner's already done it. We have examples where it would occur. It doesn't have to occur throughout, but we've still got a long, long way to go. We have a lot of that technical information available to us. The tag had a lot of skills in going forward and where we needed to progress. And so when it came to putting together a business case to go to the government, we found that the transition group was a really reliable crew of people to assist us again and provide advice on putting that business case together. That John and Kent have put together so nicely in the documents that they provided. So this is our best opportunity going forward. While it's been a council initiative, it's been Tairāwhiti run with a whole range of local people providing local solutions. And this is really our best shot going forward and trying to make a difference in here. It brings in a lot of innovation, a lot of science, and a lot of employment. So it's a really good shot going forward.
Okay. So after many, many, many workshops, and I'm sure Kent can talk to, and John, the different breakout groups and everything that along the way, we've landed on a business case where some key direction points we would reach consensus on. We have worked also with the Citizens Assembly Group, which you will be familiar with because that was funded via DIA through Council as part of a way to try and improve democracy and community participation, and they chose this area to have a look at. And so we have used some of the visioning from out of their recommendations as part of this to kind of set the way forward. And the way forward, so we have reached consensus on some key points which are elaborated a bit more in the executive summary document, but at the high level, we acknowledge that we are seeking a transformational change to our whenua and that the vulnerable land requires the protection of permanent cover. So there is we've worked with the views around whether this permanent cover is permanent Indigenous cover or exotic, and we've landed in the space that the long term is that it would be for Indigenous, but to get there, landowners also need to make those choices for themselves. So we haven't been specific on that. We recognise we must act quickly, and that was recognised in the ministerial inquiry into land use, that there's this window of opportunity within which we need to start moving all of our whenua. We will work to redefine that transition layer zone, as Kerry talked about before, alongside landowners, and that there will be a pathway, defined pathway to transition that vulnerable land. There will be assistance for landowners to create long-term plans, and we worked a lot around pest management, and we'll provide some information around how some structural interventions would be required in that space, and a lot of the funding that's required is for the purposes also of pest management. We mentioned before when we talked, gave you a brief on this, that a new regional entity would be set up to give effect to that transition. Whether it's a CCO or whether it's a trust is yet to be determined, and we'll work through with MPI and other ministries to kind of determine what that might be. Obviously, if it's a CCO, we would need further engagement with our community as required under our Local Government Act. And we are seeking collaborative funding to support the transition from central government, but there is also in our business case a contribution that would be required, whether it's on support from the council or rates from missions. We need to kind of flesh that out a bit more, and that would be council too. We see that transition makes economic sense, not just for our region, but for Aotearoa more generally. And one of the pictures that we've been putting to the government is actually this is their opportunity to demonstrate how resilience can actually be done, how managed retreat can actually be done in a planned, community-owned way. And part of a big tenet of this is being able to build our own workforce. So there are, from the Jobs for Nature opportunities, a whole lot of workforce that could be deployed into working through this type of program. Regulatory change is a key part of this, so how this connects up with the kind of, so we've got the kind of carrot and stick approach, but how they kind of connect together is really important. So that land use plan change is a key part of enabling all of this to happen. And we've got here another really important thing that came through our conversations was that we needed to have regionally led governance as the way forward. So a combination of skills, iwi, council, potentially government departments, where they saw themselves in this. And the big ask is that we're looking for government to co-invest approximately 16, that's quite a broad figure, 16 to 48 million, we're just keeping it open per annum. So we've got initial setup costs of about 1 million establishment, and I'm sure Keith, you can talk to this later once we get through just kind of how we've landed on that high level number, but we're looking at transitioning of up to 100,000 hectares. And I won't go into the program design. I think Kent, you might, I'll let you put time for you to do that. Okay. Well, what I thought I'd do is I'll just hand over to Hilton to maybe make a comment around the process and get your thoughts, or Jason after, and then to Kent.
Rangatirama te kaunihiro te tairawhiti tēnā koutou. So I grew up in the Waipu Valley in the shadow of Mount Hikurangi, and one of the things that I was taught was land was important to keep the family fed. What we've gone through, and I'm a farm consultant by training and profession, and whether that was farming or forestry, we've probably had the loudest voices over the last 50 odd plus years since I was born, and farming and forestry dominate our landscape. What we're now learning is the importance of nature-based solutions and the implications of not taking greater care of the pile. We had a warning shot in Cyclone Bylaw. We've had Cyclone Helen Gabrielle, and you all know the devastation. And what we've been through over the last, from memory, about 18 months, and goodness knows how many and workshops, we've had a diverse group of views. We've had farmers and the farming groups, we've had forestry and the forestry groups, we've had the general community, and we've also had those people with very strong environmental perspectives. Forced to sit around the table. What we've learned by having those 24 people around the table who all agree on the issue what we needed to work through was what does transition look like. And where we've landed is we've been forced to compromise and make decisions that has resulted in this business case, because we also understand the importance and the critical need to get government support to help to transition. And I caught the earlier discussion about average income per capita in our region, etc. So we're not a region with a lot of funding. So if you can get 24 people with very diverse backgrounds and views agreeing on what the fundamental issues are, mostly agree on what transition looks like, then the next thing is to get the resourcing and to go forward and make decisions. So in my view, we've had a good process. We didn't always agree. We've been forced to come back and revisit previous decisions, but I think by and large we've ended up at a place where we can all move forward and figure out the next step in transitioning to that long-term stable land use. Because if we don't act, there'll be another cyclone, Gabriel. There'll be more erosion, there'll be greater damage and harm. And yeah, for those of us who live in this region, we will be the ones for the consequences of that decision. So just to congratulate Council and the technical team that we've been able to work with, and especially Kerry. Sometimes I look at my phone and I think, well, what's he ringing for now? But I think we've done a good job of getting there, and it's certainly an opportunity to co-design the future landscape of our region has been appreciated by all of those involved. Thank you.
Jace.
Kia ora, Jason Blair. I'm now working with MPI. I've been there about 3 years. Whilst I'm not from Gisborne originally, I grew up in the Wairoa district on a sheep and beef farm. So had a long career in forestry and had a couple of years with the council way back in the late 90s as a soil conservator. So very mindful of what our geology and our difficult terrain is in those primary sectors. From a government perspective, my drive has really been around supporting and making sure the context is really well understood at the National Office. That's driven largely through the TAG group. That was a real privilege to be involved with that. As an observer on that committee, I completely agree with Bill. What I can see is that we kind of agree on what the solution is. How we might get there is a little bit different across the different groups. But the messaging to government is that we want in-region people working on these solutions. We don't want the overarching approach. I think the messaging to government is that there's real support for this business case. There's recognition of what the problem is. There's recognition of what the solution is. I think the piece that this government will be really interested in is what does resilience actually mean? Because resilience is fixing up the immediate problems. What does that create out the back end? Is that more confidence for business? Is that more confidence for the people to live in the regions? What is that? So the business case itself will have to go through a process, clearly, through Minister consideration, Treasury, but I can tell you that there's a number of officials that I work with that really do understand what's going on here. The voice, whilst I am one of the leads in this region, there are a number of people, there are a number of stakeholders that are listened to in this region. Hilton, there's others, Nadine, and we really do an awesome job in keeping that messaging up to ministers. So don't think that there's not, the voice isn't being heard. I think this business case gets us to the starting line, and all the hard work begins once this business case is landed and once the considerations and how the government might assist starts to happen. So that's me. And acknowledge Kerry. I've had a long association with Kerry, with the council. He is so passionate about this work and so knowledgeable. We're just really blessed to have the people that we had at this table here doing the tag work, so knowledgeable and so passionate about the region. So that'll go a long way to make sure it sticks down in Wellington, that's for sure.
Thank you, Jason. So can I now just go to Kent, just in terms of the ask?
Kia ora koutou. Thanks. That's how much money are we asking for? The answer's lots. Well, actually, it's not that bad. The first phase is essentially the project to set up this national entity, this regional entity, and to get the transition program up and running at scale. So this is really about getting the legal structures right, hiring in the right people, setting up the governance, the management, all the operational processes, all that sort of stuff. Now, as Nadine said earlier, depending on the structure, so whether that's a CCO or an independent trust or some of the other possibilities, that'll take between 6 and 12 months. And so we think, depending on the degree of consultation necessary, we think, as a median, about $1 million, and we are proposing that that is run as a council project. So essentially it's run out of GDC. And that it's advised by a transition board drawn from the community and the TAG group that have contributed so much to the business case itself. Once the program's up and running, now incidentally, this does not mean that we have to wait in order to get people out on the land doing things. So the sense is very much that the organisation gets started early, probably as council-led projects initially, using some of the people that have come out of the Jobs for Nature, various Jobs for Nature programs. In the first year, we're going to need to spool these up. Essentially, two things happen. The first is that there is the beginnings of regional scale pest management. And the reason that's important, as we talked about at the last workshop, is that a lot of this regeneration is going to will occur as a result of natural regeneration, particularly in forest areas, not everywhere, but that only works if there's large scale pest management. So we start with about 3 teams of 6 people beginning to get to grips with pest management, but doing it at a regional scale rather than solely at a landowner scale, and working with landowners as we go. So we start there, and at that point, the program's consuming about $16 million a year. By the time we get to year 10, things are scaled up quite a lot. We have 10 pest management teams running. We have 12 intervention teams running. That means that probably we're employing somewhere between 120 and 150 people, either directly in the program itself or a mix of within the program directly employed or contracted through external organisations. And we want a mixed model that enables both of those things. Now, that's the ask that we've got from government. So essentially we're saying this is the amount of money that we would like government to contribute to the program based on the national benefits that are going to come from it. And to give you a sense of the scale of that, of course, the cleanup in Tairāwhiti has been contributing costing somewhere between $20 and $25 million a year. So in the scale of the cleanup, this is a very sensible sort of an investment. But alongside that Crown investment, we're still doing the calculations. As Nadine said, the business case isn't yet finished. It looks as though somewhere between $1 and $3 is being contributed for every Crown dollar by the region already. So that's in GDC funding, it's in external organisations funding, it is in private landowners funding, and it is in community groups contributing time and effort alongside landowners to make this transition. So this is very much a co-investment. This is not, government does it solely. Once we have a program up and running, it also opens the opportunity for both national and international investors in areas such as international carbon markets and in some of the emerging biodiversity markets. And that's why the point that Nadine made a little earlier about needing the regulatory settings to be aligned at the national level becomes very important. So that's kind of how we're looking to spend the money and how quickly we're looking to spend the money. By about year 3, we should be running the program at a fair degree of scale, and a fair degree of workforce enablement will be required to get there.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken. So I'll just quickly, those are the next steps before we go to the questions. So hopefully get your endorsement, finalise that business case by the end of October, and then we will be submitting it to ministers around November so that it can hopefully track into consideration for.
Awesome, thank you, team. Thanks a lot for that presentation. Thank you to gentlemen here. Please stay here because we will have a few questions from the floor. I had Councillor Ria and then Councillor Wharehinga and then Councillor Thompson.
Kia ora tātou. I think the stock take of our regional land resilience is really timely for right now, considering everything we've been through. There's two things that I just want to note, not really questions, but just to note. We did get a concern at our Meet the Candidates at Manutuke the other week around someone who, a landowner, who was concerned that she understood something was happening, but she didn't feel a part of it. So I just want to, and this was not a Māori landowner, so I just want to, for us, to ensure that rangatiratanga or autonomy in planning and being a part of the conversation, but more importantly, the solutions, doing it with and not for, is paramount, no matter who the landowner is. That even it's a real tairāwhiti thing, even your neighbour, if your neighbour's getting some big work done, so your neighbour knows. Otherwise they're going, hey, there's some strangers on your whenua, what are they doing over there? Just that whole communication and working together, that was one. The second thing was just for the Jobs for Nature. Jobs for Nature has been an amazing trip, but I recognise some of the downfalls because I've been a part of it for the last 5 years. So full-time employment, there must be guaranteed full-time employment for our environmental people who are going to go into these positions. Especially if you're a pest trapper, and if you're going up there to do pest trapping, long hours up on a mountainside, but that wage is not enough to sustain your lifestyle, it's not worth it. So there also needs to be incentive to our environmental kaimahi for that sort of mahi. The other thing about Jobs for Nature is that how Jobs for Nature was structured here in Turanganui-a-Kiwa, or in Te Tairawhiti actually, was that there was a team in almost each community right up and down the coast. So I want to make sure that we don't then create this group who gets an environmental team. For example, there is the Wainake team. Everybody in the Wainake team has a connection to that whenua, to the marae and everything. Everybody in the Horoera team has a connection to that whenua. Everybody in the Ruatoria team, the Uawa team. So it's important also that the kaimahi from those Jobs for Nature projects are the people also from those regions where the mahi is getting done. That we're not getting a group from the council and going, right, you're the be-all and end-all and you're going to go out to all the sites and do all the mahi, actually tapping into that expertise also across the Jobs for Nature teams. So those are the two things I wanted to flag. In saying that, what I really enjoy about this is it's not, the business case itself is not standalone in terms of what we do here at council. Oranga Wai, Oranga Whenua, it specifically addresses the health and wealth of water and land, and therefore it positively affects Oranga Tangata, the health and wealth of people. The proposal supports the TRMP, it supports catchment planning, it supports the implementation of Te Manawa Te Wai, and it supports council, staff, regional environmental aspirations. So none of those documents work on their own. And also having this in place is timely for the 10-year plan coming next year and gives us a clear direction from our community with all of those other strategies that we've already done with Te Manawa Te Wai, with catchment planning. We've got a huge base there to inform the next council who's working on that 10-year plan. So with that being said, I'd like to move the paper. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Ria. Councillor Wharehinga and then Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Tupara.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to second the paper. I wanted to ask, though, of staff and presenters here today, where this project hinges on $16 million to $48 million coming from the national government, which is, doesn't have funds at the moment, and then also that commitment out over decades, over a decade. What's our sense of, give it some betting odds or some, unders and overs, if it's All Blacks versus Australia, likelihood of beating, getting across the line, those kinds of things. What's the odds of actually us getting this money? Because I love the project, but that's, what's the sense?
Yeah, so through your worship, we are in extremely constrained time, so I'm kind of thinking at this stage we might be lucky. But I kind of reflect on previous projects where there was no belief we'd get, full grant funding for Kiwa pools, and we managed to get some funding for pools, $40 million. So I think if the region is clear, and we are clear that this is one of our strategic pillars, this is one of our economic development drivers, it's in our regional economic plan. We've got collective buy-in from not only but the industry on board and environmentalists on board and iwi on board, and we laser focused on this, then I am confident that we will get funding to support this program. Like they did with the Erosion Coast ECFP funding, that was a long-term funding over a period of time to address our highly erodible land. I believe that we should be able to appropriate some funding, and if not next year, into the future.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. Yeah, like I said, I support this paper. We do need to make it clear that this is something really aspirational we want to do. There's no government commitment to do it yet, but like many of our other really great projects that have been delivered in region, we have to form them up first, create our forward pack and our backs, get the right people all in the right places in order for central government. If the funding and the economic environment does improve, we already have our A team ready to go. So, and that's a little ways down the track. That's a little bit uncertain, so it needs to be spoken to. But happy to second the pick. Kia ora.
With compromise, has everyone accepted where we have landed, or are there some parties not in agreement with some aspects of this?
This is where we've, so the consensus pages is where we've all reached consensus on.
Cool.
Kia ora te whare. Stand to support this report. And I think it's timely that coming into council on the back of a cyclone, ending this period with something like this is quite extraordinary. And that in the devastation and all the emotion that went around the cyclone, who would have thought we would be at this place? So congratulations to the tag team and everyone else involved for ending this term of council on this kind of a note. I do see in the report they be addressing a connection and the healing to the whenua, an acknowledgement to getting an economic balance with the transition for the land use. It does talk about the healing and the well-being of tangata as well. And on that point, I'd like to hope that as things progress further, there is a cultural, social element also being restored in terms of the transition with the replanting of the gullies, that there are tipuna places in there pūrākau that go with those places, and that those gullies and mountainsides and wāhi get a voice about the tradition that made those places special culturally for our roki. I'm saying that because the hope is that will reconnect people to the whenua, and that it's not just, that belongs to the whala over the fence. I have an investment culturally and socially in that block. The trees that are being replanted in there, they come with tipuna connection, with mahia atua considerations, which are considerations for me as well as a community. And the stabilisation of the whenua is reconnecting whānau and hapu to the traditions that also had been eroded over time of that land. And then that comes back. And with that, the manu, the insects, the access to the richness that the bush can offer back in terms of mahi toi, rāranga, whakairo, rongoa and healing, all of those other values that you're also instilling there, that they are a part of the collective well-being for our community, so we can stand in, that's my maunga, that's my awa. And it really is, because now we can access the resource from that bush, and that bush begins to have a cultural, social benefit back. And it becomes part, integrated back into who we were and who we need to be going forward. And so the bush is living and we're living in the bush. And so I hope that gets a little bit more emphasis going forward with that, because I think that's a real good sell back to the community.
Alpha and then Councillor Gregory.
And then Karakia.
Yeah, look, this is great, and it's great that we've got a group that have really thought about things. But I just also want to emphasise that we need to have economic balance in this whole project. And what I'm trying to mean by that, we've got a situation at the moment in this country where we haven't actually got the money. We've got pressures on the government at the moment from all public servants basically wanting more money. The only place that does come from is tax. So let's have a think about that. We seem really quite, in this organisation, well, our money is ratepayers' money, so we don't want to put up our rates, but we need to get money from the government. Well, let's have a think where it comes from. It comes from everybody sitting in this room and this district. So we need to be able to show as part of this business case to the government that we're going to take some economical commitment. And what I'm meaning by that, if we look at the land we're trying to change the use of, it's either farming or forestry at the moment. So there needs to be a commitment from farmers and the forestry industry that they're going to dip into their pockets as well. And I'm not trying to, I'll probably get crucified for saying this, but what I'm trying to get at is here, we need to educate them into things like halter, for instance, this technology that's coming around where you put a collar around a cattle's neck and you can dictate where it goes. So now you can keep them out of all those gullies, and you don't run sheep, you don't in those paddocks, you run cattle. So you can actually eliminate them. Now that can be an economical gain because the other benefits from halter across the rest of your farm are coming in. So it becomes self-funding. So if we can include these sort of things, the forestry industry, we've been out and had a look. The forestry industry knows damn well those gullies we're talking about, they're not economical to harvest anyway. That's the biggest nightmare for contractors, and trying to show that it's economical to harvest and get into some of those areas and then the consequence and damages. So, let's not kid ourselves. There is benefits for both industries if we can, but we need to show that we're making an economical commitment from this district, from the industries that are going to benefit in the long term, as part of a thing. Because if we just go to government saying we want money, I would say we'll take a hike. We have to get real about this, and we also have to be real that we cannot duplicate what we've done at Wainaki. I'm sorry. Per hectare, that is not, we cannot repeat it. It's not, who's going to pay? The only way we get money is from the government. Ratepayers can't afford to do that. So let's try and piece a business case as part of, this is our commitment, this is what we're going to do. And we've got to get out there and educate the industries to do it. That's sort of where I'm coming from.
Did you want to make any comment in terms of how we're shaping up that piece?
Kia ora, yes. The financial aspects of the business case of where the money comes from, that's still under development. But in fact, all of those funding streams are effectively being brought together into that section of the business case. So as I said, for every dollar that we're asking the Crown for, between $1 and $3 is coming out of the region in terms of commitment from landowners, from money that GDC is already committing and spending, from private landowners themselves already doing this kind of remediation work. And Hilton in particular has pointed out that in some of the land that he's involved in, this transition has been going for a while. So the region has actually got a long way under its own steam. And of course, if we can stand the program up with government assistance, what that then does, because it's a regional program operating at scale, it allows us to access international carbon markets and the emerging international biodiversity markets, which will bring new money into the region and new money into the country. But without that foundational government backing to get this running at a regional scale, we're not going to see that private sector investment come into the same degree. So this is not a case of simply going to the Crown with our hand out. And when we do say to the Crown, we would like your contribution, we are making a case in the business case that from an economic perspective, this makes sense. It's better to remediate the land and continue to repair the damage from it. From a social sense, from a social perspective, it makes sense. And again, there's distinct cost and benefit there. The same from a cultural perspective, as Councillor Nick has pointed out, and from an environmental perspective. So all of those threads are pulled together in the business case. The current version of the document that you have is about 75% complete. So Tautoko, Councillor, the very aspects that you're highlighting, that's in the next revision, and we will very much take those on board.
Okay, Councillor Gregory and then Councillor Parata.
Thank you. So back in 1988, when Supplementary came through, I was thinking, did we sit around and make a business case for the East Coast Forestry Project? And then we've had other things since then, Sustainable Hill Country Program, the Erosion Control Funding Program. And so first of all, we had Overlay 3A, which was the worst eroded land in 2009. And I think, I looked it up, it was 41,000 hectares. And is it correct that all about 7,000 hectares has been treated of that Overlay 3A land?
Yeah, that's the estimate of it. Of course, we've gone backwards a bit on that with cyclones. Some of it was treated, wasn't, but yeah, there was certainly some outstanding on some reasonably difficult land, predominantly with some difficult land tenure on it. But yeah, there was still some outstanding on that. Yes.
So I think, this is fantastic work, great concept. I hope it all works and good luck. I just had one other question. 1 million tonnes of topsoil being lost every week. Is that an average?
No, I checked that with Ken as I read. I was like, this doesn't sound correct, but it is, isn't it, Ken?
Unfortunately, yes. So this is actually a pretty well-researched number, and it comes out of the analysis from both Landcare and NIWA. If we look at the region as a whole, we lose about 55 million tonnes of sediment, which is both soils and subsoils, every year. And unfortunately, that's a standard year. That's not a cyclone year. Right? This. Yeah, it all ends up in the Moana, right? And the only place on Earth that has higher sediment flows out is the Yangtze River in China.
Okay, Councillor Parata.
Ka pai tēnā tātou. At the council table, we don't always get to talk about things that are aspirational, and even though I can tell that we're right at the beginning of this process, I can see where we'll be going as a region and what this region could potentially look like in the future, and I'm proud to be part of it. And it's also good to see that industry experts and leaders are working together for the same purpose, even though we're seeing it from different perspectives, that the idea is that we make this region better for everyone. there were actually two things that I was wanting to get clarification on. The first is that while I can see that there are pathways and considerations for landowners, what I can't see is any specific consideration about the complexity of whenua Māori and how whenua Māori might engage, or Māori landowners might engage in this space, knowing that it's their specific situation is so complex, even in day-to-day decision-making, and particularly around ungoverned lands. Where are they going to fit, and who is advising about that? Nice, good question.
Who's going to answer?
That is a really good question, and that's why so part of the engagement has been with the Tarawhiti Whenua Collective, which represent about how many hectares of landowners there are?
So we've got over 200,000 hectares represented in the collective, which is why we know about the problem land that Councillor Gregory has identified. It's predominantly Māori land. Untreated 3A, sorry.
What we know about whenua Māori is that most of it will be problem land. That is the nature of whenua Māori, and the structures of whenua Māori have been intentionally complex to prohibit us from being able to make decisions about our whenua, and we find ourselves, Māori in particular, find ourselves in a position where we are unable to move forward. What I don't want is that as the region moves forward into a transition into a better, brighter future, that Māori are locked out of the opportunity to participate because the structure doesn't support us. So what I'm asking is that going forward in the business case, I like it as it is, but going forward in the business case, I'd like to see that question specifically addressed for Māori and for whenua Māori and Māori landowners. And I would like to see that reflected in the governance structure as well. And then I had another question, which is less kohete and more fun. Thinking about pest culling, Tony Holden gave me a call the other day, and you probably have already heard this. No, but it's clever. So him and then all the other hunters, you'll forgive me if I don't know the technical terms, no one's ever taken me hunting. But they're killing heaps of deer and heaps of goat all the time. And when we talk about food insecurity, of which there's plenty, let's be so for real about that goat is the primary source of protein for whānau that live in Africa. And I don't particularly eat goat, but I'm sure there are whānau here in New Zealand that do eat it. What I want to know is, if we're talking about culling these pests, this is the MPI question, is there a way for us to also lobby government for te tairawhiti to be able to process this meat in a way that's safe, in a way that we can distribute and make money to continue to cull our pests, feed whānau, even potentially in a halal way if there's a way to do that? Is there a way to do it? Don't laugh, because we've got no money and this might be some money.
I welcome that comment because it shows you thinking, how do we use what we have and make it go further while supporting whānau as well. So thank you for that comment, and please.
It was a consideration to come up. We've had a very helpful workshop on pest management, particularly animal pests, and that very much came up, and we're certainly looking at how that may be developed. Meat for local people, but also the opportunity we're talking about going further than that. So we want to look at the opportunities in this going forward.
I think just knowing what we know about our whenua, forestry, farming, the other thing we have is hunter-gatherers. We've got some of the best hunter-gatherers that live here and have the opportunity. If they could, they would be in the bush constantly and they would never come out. They'd throw their kill out on the side of the road and go back. And I just think that there's a real opportunity for us to harness that, and potentially in terms of an industry and as a brand, and as a region.
See it as opportunity.
To see it as an opportunity and to move forward. We're already thinking aspirationally about what our land could look like and what good kaitiakitanga could look like. I just think that that's worth considering. But otherwise, I'm supportive of the paper. Thank you very much for the effort and the expertise that's been put into it.
Okay, any councillors still want to make a comment, ask a question?
Just a quick comment. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the option of a goat or deer pie instead of a power pie. This is a great piece of work. It's very exciting to see that we're looking at this thing holistically instead of the post-bowler, which was very focused on monoculture, and that's the trouble we're trying to get out of. Just to counter a bit of a comment, we are going to help the situation. We're never going to stop flow of dirt off those hills. In the 80s, I drilled a hole in the flats. To 65 metres. It was fertile silt the whole way, and all the way we hit wood occasionally. There's nothing new about this dirt movement, and we're not going to stop it. But if something like this is going to be great to arrest it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any last comments or questions? Councillor Foster.
I totally endorse this whole procedure. I think it's awesome. It's something the region is really crying out for, and it's good to see that everyone's come together to agree on a way forward for sure. And the two structures that you're talking about, a CCO or a trust within council, that's going to be really important to set up either one or the other. When I look at the difference between a CCO and a trust, I probably have a preference to a CCO because it's a bit more hands-on with the council. If I can compare a trust, like trust Tarawhiti in particular. So, when would that be like?
Later. Way later. We're not
later.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully I'm still around when that comes off the table.
Okay, so Kent. Let's move on to Kent. Thank you, Kent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just through the Mayor, from the point of view of the project team, can we just, this is an immensely complex business case. This is probably the most complex business case we've ever worked on because it combines not only what do we need to do, but how do we need to go about it in terms of delivery plan. And so I think Nadine in particular and her directors have contributed a vast amount to this, not only in terms of the amount of material and input provided, but also the breadth of strategic vision to bring together all of the things that councillors have mentioned that we are bringing together, and a lot of threads, and doing this in a holistic way. And I think the guidance and strategy for that that's very much been how Nadine has driven it. So from the point of view of the project team, we would very much like to thank her for her guidance. The other thing is that we would very much like to thank Kerry, because without the depth of his knowledge and the depth of his relationships going back so many decades, none of this would have been possible, and I think we would never have got the consensus that we've achieved around the table. So just from the point of view of the project team, that was very much appreciated.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you for your input here today. Nadine, anything else you want to add? So I do, Kerry.
Just two things, 2 points are brought up there. One from Councillor Tilk. We need to make sure that the land that is productive in this region remains productive, and what is not sustainable is transition. That's really critical for us going forward in all land uses, farming and forestry. Some of the properties Hilton's been involved in, and we very trust in particular are achieving that now. Forestry can do the same. The other point was what Councillor Ria brought up about the jobs for nature thing. We don't want to go reinventing any wheels, and we really look forward if we can catch up with you about that sooner rather than later, just how we can make that carry on into the future. Thank you.
Kerry.
You got my number, Kerry.
Good. So I have a mover and Councillor Ria, a seconder and Councillor Wharehinga. All in favour? Aye. 1-3 carry. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Hutch. And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Okay, next we are going to move to the last paper on our agenda. I know there are other papers still. You don't have to remind me. I'm not that crazy today. I'm slightly crazy today, but not that crazy. We are going to go to the Ngati Oneone noting paper.
$573.
573. Thank you, Councillor Foster. Okay, Jean, am I going to hand over to you?
Kia ora, Your Worship, and tēnā tātou. So in front of us we have an updating report. The main sort of aspects of this report being an update on the investigations of the 8 whenua parcels that were prioritised in the Statement of Intent mahi with Ngati Oneone, as well as an update of engagement to date. I know that from a council perspective, there were questions raised in terms of ensuring that council followed a process that that acknowledged and was respectful of all rights and interests in terms of the Statement of Intent mahi and the whenua identified, and again, as per the intent, in the Statement of Intent, we have pulled a paper together as an update, obviously worked alongside Ngati Oneone representatives as well, and you would have seen in the report that they've contributed to a section in there as well, providing their views. And so really just an update for this outgoing council, and also provides a good springboard for the new group of elected members post-elections and as we move into the new term. And so with that in mind, yeah, I'll take the paper as read, and yeah, happy to answer any partai. I just will raise, Your Worship, we've skipped a couple of papers in the agenda and brought this up. I know I'm not too sure if Willie's in the gallery, but he was intending to be here, him and Renelle, but acknowledging that we've jumped a couple of papers and we're looking at this one now, I thought I'd just, for our awareness. Kia ora tātou.
You cannot miss Willie. Okay, what I'm going to do is, Nadine, can I open it up for questions? Anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to add a few questions just in terms of the attachment that is there, which is a communications from Chairman Penny, just in terms of the funding contribution that the crowd, the GDC expenditure funding 250,000 and also transfer zero value. This letter hasn't been responded to and is not yet a council position. Thank you for those that were in file.
Okay, the floor is open. This is an update on where we were, progress on our August hui. Any questions or queries? Now is your time. 1, 2, 3. Alpha, Foster, Holder.
Yeah, this is look, this paper is an update, but I'm still concerned that we are looking, council is looking at leases or licences in the interim, and until these land parcels, is what we agreed to in the memorandum of understanding was to investigate these land parcels, and if through the process it comes out that they are not needed or whatever. But I'm not in favour of leasing or license to use in the interim, because that's setting us up for an argument. Imagine someone goes and starts developing something, and then we end up saying, hang on a minute, no, we can't sell this. You're setting yourselves up in a position of no return. So I'm not in favour of that in the interim. We agreed to the memorandum of understanding, and I totally am happy with what we agreed to, but until these land parcels are investigated and we get the information back of what they are and how they can be used, we should follow the process that we accepted that we were going to do. So that's where I sit.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Foster.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of queries on page 78. It says about the fishing.
578.
Yeah, so I take it when I look at the map, is that talked about the fishing ground out in front of Kaitibi and the harbour? Is that the fishing ground that has been talked about? Because on page...
Can you just take us again to what page and
578.
578 and what number?
578. 30, number 1, co-funding from Hapu and iwi for the harbour and Titirangi, with iwi providing co-funding management of the harbour in Titirangi. So
That's not on my page, 570. 581.
Yeah, 581.
580. Give me one moment, sorry. My computers. I hate these new computers, actually.
That's all right, you'll get there, Councillor Foster.
Okay, yeah, Pōrere titles in Kaiti 322 block, which is a fishing reserve. Kaiti 322 block, which is a fishing reserve.
Thank you, Jean.
Kia ora tātou. Through you, Your Worship, just probably touching on Councillor Telfer's comments initially. So yourselves as a table of elected members have walked through this process, in which we've walked through alongside Ngati Oneone as well. We've got to this point unanimously supported, and I think to the point there's a reservation about entering into any type of arrangement, whether that be lease or license to occupy, predetermines an outcome. I just want to highlight that, one, we've already endorsed that we'd go that way. Two, that doesn't predetermine an outcome, because the conditions in which those leases or licenses would be negotiated with the potential for a different pathway being the result of investigations in mind, and really trying to anchor this back into the intent that sits behind the statement of intent in which we've entered into this piece of work with Ngati Oneone. Again, we've used a lot of strong words. We've flown our partnership intent as sort of being the flagship to our reason for stepping into this. Yet, however, when we do encounter instances where at an individual level or collectively as a council table we are uncertain, our immediate response may be to defer or default, and again the decisions are yours as elected members at the end of the day. But I think we need to reflect back to the journey that we've been on, and actually what is in front of us for consideration today, not necessarily decision. And so in my mind, the decision that we will explore interim arrangements has already been made until investigations are fully undertaken and the pathways for disposal, the shared interests perhaps have been defined and worked through. It's at that point where decisions and definitive decisions will be made. Now, secondly, to Councillor Foster's partai, look, at the end of the day, Ngati Oneone again have stated this in the first report that went to council, I think, but the return of these whenua will allow its support and facilitate their development socially, culturally, spiritually, economically for the future. And so I can't give a definitive answer around the partai that you've raised around fishing grounds in particular, but I will just draw perhaps a line of common sense to, given that they are a coastal hapu, a coastal iwi, their long-standing affinity with takutai and all that goes with is certainly proven and existing. And if there's any way that we are able to facilitate that reconnection through this process, then I think it's incumbent on us to seriously consider what that looks like in line with the statement of intent.
Yeah, well, okay, I just gather that that 322 is on that map on page 580 is a stretch that goes out to the aerial reef, aerial rock. So that's not my question. I'm just asking, is that the block 322? Okay. So
Yes. No. Can we just, sorry, through your worship, I'll just ask Willie because we have co-written, so we'll clarify.
The Rongo-Whakata area of interest.
The question is about this that looks like a bird.
Yeah. Kia ora tātou, thanks for the opportunity to come up. So what you're looking at is the area of interest for Rongo-Whakata.
Right, yeah.
And so all of the protocols with conservation, etc., are worked within that area of interest. That's the first one. Second point of that map that you'll see is the Kaiti block is expressly tabled and marked. And this is an important point for you all. That table says there are shared interests there, but the mana whenua or ahika is held by Ngati Oneone. Right? And so I appreciate what Councillor Taufa has said about opening up disputes. This was something that was resolved in 2011. This was then captured in the Rongo-Whakata Deed of Settlement. This was then reinforced by the Rongo-Whakata Claims Settlement Act in 2012. So there's no dispute between those three hapu of who the mana whenua and the ahika is. So that's the first point. The second point is that in relation to the lease, the example I gave last time is the 10 hectares by the hospital is cross-claimed by 3 different groups. Despite that, the government has granted us a lease so that we can develop 150 houses. That then leads into my last point, which is the question that was asked. The leadership of that time, in their wisdom, sought to have 3 fishing reserves so that our people could come to the sea for different issues. One was in Awapuni, that's now the Adventure Playground, League Ground, soccer fields, but that was one of the original reserves. The other one is Waiawa, and that's the mouth of the Tūranga River directly opposite the port, and so that was included in our claim. So part of the railway station is in that area, that's Waiawa Harore. The third one is what's known today as Kaiti 322, and so that's the third reserve. So just using that issue that Councillor Taufa has raised, is that all we're looking to do is use 8 Titirangi Drive to be able to get access to that fishing reserve because it's landlocked. So we've got, because of the arrangements now, it's landlocked land. And so interim arrangement to allow access across that land, not only for Kaiti 322, but all of those in that area is actually a benefit. If we can do that in the interim and do the planning to create the easements to do that, and the issue of long-term ownership is resolved at a further time once you've got your legal reports and that, actually that's a good thing to do because ultimately we want better access for everyone of that block. That's just one example in this bigger context of this paper. So I just wanted to support Jean and say we've worked well on this paper. Like I said last time, 21st of August was a unanimous decision, and these issues were touched on then, and this is just really a noting to say we're progressing well against what you unanimously agreed on the 25th of June and the 21st of August.
Yep, no, awesome. All right, thank you. So on page 581, when it refers to for the harbour and Titirangi, what is the harbour? What area is the harbour?
Good question. So the Eastland Port has an area of responsibility. And so under our agreement with Trust Tairāwhiti, which I understand they'll make public on the 23rd of October, under that agreement they'll set up a rōpū tiaki. And that rōpū tiaki will have the 3 hapu that have shared interests, Ngati Oneone, Ngai Tāwhiri, Te Whānau, Aiwi, sitting with the port to work through long-term strategic plans, resource consents that may come up. And if you're a part of that rōpū tiaki and you sit at that table, you can't then go outside that table and object to what takes place. So this is about creating a forum where we take collective responsibility for the development of our area. So one of those groups is the rōpū tiaki Moana, and that's the one that's dedicated with Trust Tairāwhiti and Port Eastland to work through those issues. The other one is for Titirangi. And so the titles for Titirangi, again, the 3 hapu, together with the GDC in this case, will sit there. One of the points that our Chief Executive touched on was future funding. We're not in here to say council should foot this. We're in here to say that we want to look at co-investment because we care about the moana, we care about the maunga. And yes, conservation and GDC have done job over the last few years, few decades, century plus, in some cases. We want to share in that responsibility. Kaitiaki means that we be a part of that as well. I acknowledge what she said. That's not a decision, that's not a position. Ka pai, what our chairman of Te Aitanga Mahaki has said, with the support of Te Whānau Iwi, is that we will work our settlement to ensure there's funding to fulfil our kaitiaki responsibilities going forward.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Councillor Alder.
Thank you. Just sort of a point of clarification on background, point 1.
Page.
Page number 575. The petition called for the return of confiscated lands within the area. Are we dealing with confiscated lands, or are we dealing with a basket of... Is that correct?
It is correct in terms of the language of the petition. So the language of the petition says we were here next to our cemetery. Through the mechanisms of legislation and the public works, we were forced to move to another place. In the minds of those that crafted their petition, when you're forced to move from one place to another, that's akin to a confiscation, firstly. Secondly, in terms of the 8 titles that we're looking at in terms of the GDC, are those confiscation? The answer to your question is no. And so your team has done some preliminary work. We will work with their preliminary work, and when the next council sits, the outcome of that research will be brought back to the councillors at that time.
No, just on the council will proceed, in my book, will proceed in a fair, just and equitable way, and thank you.
Councillor Wharehinga, thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I do need to declare an interest. It's a non-financial interest. It's a non-land-based interest. Ngati Kōhuru have attended the ahi up at Te Pai too. And I've been part of that ropu that has been up there with that fire. But that doesn't preclude me. There's no conflict there that precludes me from being able to stand up and speak in regards to this. I've heard some concerns in regards to leases and licenses and things that have been indicated in this paper, and I'd like to remind us it's a noting paper, so I'm more than happy to move this noting paper. It's just for our information only. And there's been some worry about predetermination. I need to remind us that councils before this one have already predetermined that any whenua, any land that's not being utilised by us must go back. It must go back to the rightful landowner. Whether that was taken via Public Works Act or via some other local government mechanism, whatever. Like, we've made that commitment. We came to the agreement as past councils and also this council. We don't want things that will cost ratepayers dollars for other things, and those things having really strong meaning for other parts of our community who will look at them, who will look after them, who will have the resource and the want to be kaitiaki of these places. You know, we're just local government in the space. We're checking those rules and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. We don't need to be so deep down in the who gets what and across what kind of thing, other than being informed, because the people that are that have the most interest in these parcels of land will figure it out themselves. We have to trust our community to figure out the solutions for themselves, and like we constantly say, every single time we come to this table, we want to make it easy. We want to make it easy, and I kind of hear some people kind of talking around making it more hard. You know, so I just want to remind us, council should, if you want to be going, hey, we want to make it easy, let's make it easy for everyone. Let's trust the community to be able to know what they're going to do and how to manage these future discussions around whenua. I'd like to remind us that this is the right direction. The right direction is acknowledging that we own things, or we have control of things, that other people, those things were removed from them. We should be from a values-based position, from a principles-based decision, doing everything to make it easy and support that whenua, those resources, that access back to those rightful people. So more than happy to move this noting paper.
I just want to note one other point which may not be appreciated. These lands will go into Te Poho o Rawiri Marae Reservation. It's be held for the common use and benefit of Ngati Pro, Te Aitanga Mahaki, Rongo Whakata, Maita Maruhiri, and Ngati Oneone. So when people note that this could be contested, it's going into an incorporation that the property must be held for the common use of and benefit of all those groups. So it's coming into an entity that is set up and has been utilised for the last 85 years for the common use and benefit of those four iwi groups, which includes Te Whanua iwi, which includes Ngai Tawhiri.
Any other questions, Councillor Parata?
Kapai, thank you so much. Just want to support, I guess where Josh is coming from. This is not really for decision, it's for noting. But one of the things I'm really proud of in terms of this council is that we've been a transformational council this last 3 years. We've made really, really brave decisions to move forward. Just in terms of like the leasing, and while the investigation is still going on, what we want to do as a region is move forward. In every way we can move forward, we want to move forward because we're so far behind the rest of the country. If we don't carry on moving forward, we're going to get stuck. The other thing to note, I suppose, particularly about this case, and that's notwithstanding Ngāi Tawhiri's claim to some of the whenua, and again, we can see that there's ongoing mahi and engagement in that space, and it doesn't require us as council to have an opinion about what that is, or what that relationship may or may not be. But the aspirations of Ngati Oneone being supported by the iwi surrounding them are for the betterment of the people that live in our region. And what I know particularly about iwi and hapu is that whānau, whether they're Māori or not, will find a home there with Ngati Oneone. And so I just wanted to make that noted, that so often I think we get confronted by the fact that this is being front-footed by hapu or by Māori, and that if you don't identify that way, that feels confronting for you. But ultimately, development and progress is good for the entire region. Yep, that's it. And I second the paper. Hopefully we can move it.
Or queries?
You
You didn't move it, but I will be Lucy today and give you the opportunity to have another go.
Look, I made my point of the reasons around the leases, but what I'm also trying to get at is that if we want buy-in from the whole community on these sort of decisions, we need to realise that there is procedures that need to be followed. And if we look at anything, any land that's been taken under the Public Works Act, and I'm talking about highways going through the middle of the Waikato or whatever it is, if any of that land is then not needed, it is fair that it is offered back to the previous owners, irrespective of race, colour, whoever they are. But I just think we need to follow that process. And if that land has been, like you use the words taken, yes, it was taken under the Public Works Act, if it was, but that land was, people were compensated for it at the time. Everyone is under the Public Works Act. So there's a program that needs to be followed, and I just think if you want everyone to buy into it in this whole district, we need to be careful that we don't.
Your Worship.
Your Worship.
Just a couple of comments. I respect the points that have been made. Hapu is a classic example where it was to be taken under the Public Works Act for a cemetery. Those owners were forced to sell that land. It's not what they wanted to do. It is now used as a recreational area for the benefit of the entire community. I wrote the claim by Rapiata Ria Senior back in 1992, filed in 1993, seeking the return of that land. We tried to work with council of that time to see if we could acquire that land back, because the Crown provided us with 10 million to be able to acquire land. So despite the injustice of that land being forced to be sold, despite the injustice of it being tagged for one purpose and used for another purpose, the council of that time decided that it was a step too far to achieve justice. And accordingly, we had to use that money to buy Opo on the way out to Manutuki on the right-hand side where the last kahikatea stand of land is. So I just wanted to firstly give that example. The second one, Councillor, is, like I said, I hear your concerns. All the lands that we've tagged are lands that actually everybody knows can be put to a practical purpose. So when you refer to the previous owner of the 3 sections at Cambridge Terrace, you acquired those by direct transfer of the Crown for sites that were tagged for housing. So the 3 sections on Cambridge Terrace, they were actually under Housing Corporation of the time, and they were transferred to the GDC at no cost. And so all we're asking for is that that land be made available so that, like in Elgin, where we've got a philanthropic person that has brought the shops there, and we now use those areas for training for our people in that community, love and care in that community. If you go there in Tūranga Health Initiatives, you'll see the land has been purchased by a philanthropic organisation. Tūranga Health is in there, and in one of our most challenged areas, they get love and care in terms of their community. That's the same as what we want to do there on Cambridge Terrace. You know, instead of the podcasts that go showing roads and everything else in that area, we just want to put love into that community. The 3 sections opposite the marae. We've got a school that's been approved opposite the marae. We want to put mara and we want to put other things in that will complement not only the marae, but our kura. And if you go around to the yacht club, who was the last person living there before it was acquired? Rutene Irwin's mother. And so we haven't targeted areas that we don't have a connection to. We've targeted areas that we have connection to. You have over 300 titles in that scope of area. We've narrowed it down to these 8 because we have a direct connection to them. So I just wanted to make that.
Thank you for that, Willie. Thank you, everyone. It is a noting paper, but lovely that questions are asked and answered. That's exactly why we're around this table to thank you for the update. So I have a mover in Councillor Wharehinga, seconder in Councillor Parata. All in favour? Aye. Okay, next, as you see, I'm not stopping. So do your own thing, grab a coffee. 484, update of council delegations. 484, Jacinta. Thank you for joining us. I'll hand over to you.
For your worship, this is really a comparatively bland report, I would say. It's just seeking an administrative update to the Council's Resource Management Act delegations. It's primarily triggered by the recent updates to the legislation. Every council around the country will be going through this process, and we also have some plans to address at the same time related to a restructure and some other very minor points which are addressed in the take any questions.
I'd like to move.
I second.
Carried. Any questions of Jacinta?
None. Thank you so much.
It is quite
Jacinta.
Straightforward. Sorry to sit there. Sorry.
Don't understand the delegations that need
Just
to be
remember,
done.
one person at a time talking, please. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, just reading through this is like, man, this is another maze of stuff, and you just don't understand the amount of delegations that have to go through in a council like ours, and to take the pressure off our CEO, and her responsibility is to trust all those people making those delegations to make the right delegations, and so it's just, there was just pages and pages and pages of all these different delegated authority, and just makes you realise the complexity of this organisation and what actually goes on behind the scenes. So hats off to Nadine and the team for having all these responsibilities that we, at the end of the day, are responsible for. you know, those delegation decisions that they make, yeah, because we're the ones at the public face that
Thank you.
face the consequences if they're wrong.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. All in favour? Aye. Contrary? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jacinta.
I just wanted to say thank you for the key. Spelling out the acronyms.
So next we are going to move to our last paper is just also some standard stuff where the police ask us for the Longline classic temporary alcohol ban. It's page 510, councillors.
I'm happy to move it as well because it's ongoing.
Okay, you guys are totally overwhelming. Moved by you, seconded by Gregory, all in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you so much. I just want to double check, Julia, that the whole is all good. Okay, this brings us to the end of our business. I am now going to ask Councillor Pahurahuriwai. We're going to wrap up soon, but I did want to give both yourselves just the opportunity while we're still live, and then other councillors, when we catch up later, can make comment. But I thought I'll just give you the opportunity to give a short reflection. You go first, Councillor Pahurahuriwai, and then our Deputy Mayor will wrap it up. Kapai? Thank you.
Tēnā tatai. Tēnā koe te koe a matua. Well, matua's never sounded quite right. Kahurangi.
Kahurangi.
Tēnā koe. Thank you for the opportunity to address everybody. Ia kukua kainihira, tāhau tū, te mui whakarei. Ngā kaimahi anu hoki tēnā koutou. I hadn't prepared anything just because I didn't know I was going to have this space, but I really want to just acknowledge everyone around the table for this past 3 years. It's been a really steep learning curve, and I have a greater appreciation for all the mahi that gets done in council as a whole. The responsibilities that we have for the entire Tairāwhiti. And often I'm asked out in our community, who's our councillor now? Everyone is your councillor. The whole lot of them are your councillor. So you no longer just have one, but you have 13 who sit around the tipu. And that in itself has been a bit of a mind shift for everyone, and it's going to take more than one term for people to understand that they now, our communities have access to the whole table instead of the one person who they're used to seeing. I really want to acknowledge our democracy team. I acknowledge Heather, who was camp mother. We first started, and as a new councillor man, without Heather, oh boy, it would have been a really, really tricky space. And for whatever questions I had as a new councillor, she always had a response and just knew the place inside out. And since Jules coming on as well and stepping into those shoes, and Tere and the whole team just felt have always felt completely looked after in my role as Māori Ward Councillor. Nadine, to you as the one who we employ, our only employee, but you do such an amazing job as the CEO of this organisation. You take the hits. You're the one who gets it. You know, on behalf, you carry a lot of things on your shoulders for all of your staff, for the region. Ka nui te mihi ki a koe i te tuahine. Mo tō mahi nui tō maia, te mahi ni tō a koe. Kia kaha koe, kia maia, kia manawa nui, ngā tāuki tāna mai. And to Renette, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. We've spoken today about your passion for the region, but I've seen that with my eyes, with my own eyes, and how well you is when you're out of region, and just how hard you work, tirelessly for us. And that's, the results are showing in the many more millions of dollars that you've managed to extract for our region in very trying times. We're not the only region that suffered under the cyclones. The whole nation has. And the fact that you both have managed to get the additional funding for us has been amazing. For the past, since the campaign started, I've been banging on to all of our whānau, and if you're listening out there, vote. We have a few more days left to vote. Please vote to keep Māori wards. We fought long and hard for Māori wards. We fought, and the previous council had the courage to enable Māori wards to happen, for us 5 to be here at the table. And I think we've done a pretty blimmin' good job. Thank you, Larry. I've really enjoyed working with our colleagues, our tiriti partners around the tipu, having the deep discussions, and I look at our paper, our values, our tikanga, manaakitanga, pono, whanake, rangatiratanga, rongo Māori, whanaungatanga, things that guide us every time we come and make decisions around this table. And we came to those values as a collective. They don't belong to us as Māori, they belong to all of us who were part of the discussions and those deep workshops that we had at the very beginning of our time together. Those few first days that we had of induction, or actually it was weeks, it was a couple of weeks, I mean, I do hope that the new council gets to also have a similar induction, especially the history of local government in Te Tairāwhiti. I think that's a critical platform for us to move forward together as people who love Te Tairāwhiti, who have chosen to live, work and play here and grow our families here. I think that as Māori ward councillors, we've brought a critical voice to the table that wasn't here before. And we've helped to change the culture of a place that prior to our arrival, I had heard was very toxic. And I think that, well, I know that because I've been told this by previous councillors, but also by being here in this space, hearing from staff as well, that the wairua of this place in this room has changed. I don't think that would have changed without us being here. There's a whole lot of things that I'm proud of in this space that have been achieved, and a lot of them have already been a consequence of many years of work of previous councils, like the Kiwa Pools. But I'm especially proud of our emergency HQ, that you managed to get done, Nadine, with right on budget, post-Gabrielle, and now if I think about where we were with Gabrielle, and this place was the central headquarters for CEDAM, and now we have a purpose-built whare that will make sure that the entire region has communications, the training that's been rolled out across the region. I feel a lot safer in terms of any other emergency that might come our way because that's there. I'm also proud of the Transition Advisory Group, the TAG. I think that's pretty incredible space to be in a very short time. And look forward to seeing where that goes to. And all of that, Te Ao Tiriti Campus, as a leader in terms of the councils around the motu, and putting that into practice now in terms of how we work with mana whenua. Challenging conversations that we've had around this table, and we haven't always agreed, we've agreed to disagree, but always left this room with our mana intact. And I really appreciate everybody's efforts in that space. I'm really looking forward to following the development of the sports stadium, the Resource Recovery Centre, the CBD development, and I really look forward to continuing engagement by our staff of our rural communities, listening to their voices and us in our rural communities seeing ourselves reflected. Stuff happening for us as well. Good luck to the new council in navigating and responding to the ever-changing central government demands. Good luck to the staff in doing and getting through all of that that's ahead. The 10-year, the long-term plan. I'll be watching that with interest and encouraging our whānau to be engaged in the community consultation. And that's another thing that I'm proud of, is that more of our people come into this place now and they are participating in submissions. They are writing submissions. They are turning up here and bringing delegations and putting petitions before the council, more than they ever have before. And I think that's something to be proud of as well. I look around our table and I think about all the other councils and I'm so glad I'm part of this council. I think we do a great job together. And I wish all of you that are campaigning the best of luck. I'm really happy I'm not in that race this time round. And just whoever is sitting around the table at the next council meeting, just all the very best of luck going forward. We all come to the table with aspirations of what we think we can achieve. Of course, once you're around here, you realise what you actually can't achieve. But through lots, and you're certainly not going to do it in a term, but through lots of wānanga, understanding each other, being respectful and listening to the information that our staff are gathering. We have such a top quality staff, and that's due to the amazing leadership. So, I think that's enough for me. But don't forget us at the beginning of the region. I have you all on speed dial, especially our team over there. Hey, Tim, you're on my speed dial, Tim. And Anita. You're all on my speed dial. Don't block me. And, don't forget us. I make sure that you won't forget us. And just kānei te mihi kia koutou katoa, ngā manaakitanga o ngā mātua tīpuna, o ngā atua kei runga i a koutou, kei runga I tēnei kaunihira. Nui te mihi kia koutou, and I consider all of you my mates. So yes, Colin, I will be calling in for crayfish and a wine at some point. But all have just best of luck. I look forward to seeing the results in a couple of weeks. Tēnā.
What you said.
I'm just going to grab me some tissues, maybe.
Oh. Yeah, I was trying not. I had mine stuffed up my sleeve.
Just in case. Odds are, probably. Firstly, I want to acknowledge the group of community-minded people who had convinced me to stand 12 years ago. And I say acknowledge, not thank, because man, these 12 years have been very, very hard. Over a quarter of my life spent in council. I want to acknowledge the voters who turned up every election and voted for me so strongly. I'm humbled by being selected by you all, every term. 3 of those terms, top of my class, I'll never forget that. This isn't even the part that's making me serious. I'll always be humbled by the selection from our ratepayers and our residents. Our ratepayers and residents are the lifeblood of our organisation. And without our community, Gisborne District Council does not exist. So to me, if our residents are the lifeblood of our organisation, then I guess the staff are the heart, and I want to thank the heart of this organisation, I want to thank you all for your service day in and day out. This is a grateful community, but also a hard community to serve. And like our elected roles, your role is also often thankless. So, so for anyone who might be listening on the live stream, I want you to know thank you. I want to acknowledge all councillors I've ever served with. It is a hard job, and it's hard to describe how hard this job and how difficult it is unless you've actually been a councillor yourself. whether you're on the left, the right, up, the down, the diagonal, whatever on the spectrum, the only people that really truly understand the burden of being a councillor are other people who have been councillors. In terms of specific councillors I want to acknowledge, first I want to acknowledge Manu Kari. Regardless of how you feel about Manu, his impact on the region and his impact in council is undeniable. Thank you for your support of me long before I ever put my hand up to be in council. You know, your belief in me was and still is important. Craig Bald, a staunch advocate of democracy. Even though we disagreed about everything, he still advocated for me to stand on my own business, to argue my points formally on the council agenda and in front of my constituents, and I'll be forever grateful for that. To Uncle Bill Burdett, in the time before this term, there was no stauncher rep to the coast in my eyes. I wear this tie actually on behalf of Uncle Bill Burdett, who gave it to Manu, who when he left council gave it to me. So, you know, it's kind of has this whakapapa from Uncle. I want to make special mention to Pat Seymour and Brian Wilson. Pat, as hearings chair, I learned regulation and procedure from her as my role in my role as a hearings commissioner, and as the deputy chair to her in the liquor licensing space. Brian, as finance and performance chair, I was his deputy chair, and I learned the vastness of council finances, and that was the intellectual equivalent of wading through mud. I really want to acknowledge them too, because they mentored me and helped me grow into the councillor that I am today. I want to say to the new incoming council and to my fellow councillors who will largely be part of the next council, I want to remind you guys, and it's something that I've always tried to live by. Remember, there's so much we have in common. There's so much more that unites us than what divides us. And I want you guys to remember that as you go into the next term. Now comes the Terry bits. We have gone through so many ups and downs together. It's been a roller coaster ride that only you and I really know some big parts of it. And yet I want to say on the record, with the film, with the camera rolling and on the public record, you're the shit. I've watched you work your ass off for this community day in and day out. And I know we're not supposed to swear in council, but what are you going to do? Let me out? Code of conduct? I'm gone once the VM rolls around. So, and I stand by that. You've worked so hard. It's been a privilege for me to witness, and I will be endlessly grateful. Our region's first Māori Te Pirime. Yes. And that's a legacy. That's a legacy I can share with my grandchildren, and they can share with their grandchildren. Serving this community has been the second hardest thing, and the second most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life. The first hardest thing has been a solo parent. Thank you, my friend, for appointing me as the Deputy Mayor. You put your faith in me, and I hope I've done you proud. I want to thank the Hood. I still hang out with my childhood friends, my Hood-raised friends, with shearers and labourers, and they may wear varying different colours of shades of red and blue. But whenever we get together, there's one thing they always say. They go, man, one of us made it, or I can't believe one of us is the Deputy Mayor, because your appointment of me, in their eyes, is our appointment, So thank you very much for that. It fills me with so much pride when they say those things. I'd like to thank my family who have supported me 100% and my partner. But most of all, I want to thank my children. You supported me and gave me permission to run for council. You helped me with my billboards and delivering flyers. You've all been my day one supporters. You walked with me in here on day one, and I look forward to them being here later on to eat with us. I love you, my babies. It's been an absolute privilege to be here. Thank you very much, whānau. Kia ora tātou.
E karere ki reo, uria kona kapapa ki ama, ngatamari ki toa kere te rangire, e haere ana e tau kurie, ora hia e matariki ki te whenua, te maramatanga mo te motu e, ki ati pu e puawai honore, mo te pani mo te rawa kore. Whakamaru ko taku titiro, te rerenga o te rā, tauana te hanurue, ki te manawa, horahia e matariki ki te whenua. Te maramatanga mo te motu e, i ati pu e puawai honore, mo te pani mo te rawa kore, mo te rawa kore. Thank you so much for your beautiful words, Annie. Beautiful words, Josh. We will have the opportunity later to respond, but I just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you so much before we sign out. Thank you so much, Annie, for the journey you walked alongside Council. Josh, I could not have done it without you. Thank you for 6 years of supporting, walking alongside me, sometimes carrying and dragging me, but getting me where I need to be. You will be a friend forever. Thank you. So with that, I say, wrap it up. 2025 has come to an end. Thank you for a wonderful 3 years together, and we sign out. Yes.